checking it out.
Mics,
All set?
3, 2.
Okay, thank you. Okay, this is Tuesday, March 7th, and our first item this evening is a public hearing. This is on Che. This is 45 South Greeley Avenue, an application for a site development plan approval to convert a second-floor office space into 1 to 2 bedroom apartment. I guess it's a 2-room bedroom apartment? Anyway, we'll find out from Chuck. So is there a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So, here we are. Chuck, are you there? I
Yeah, can you
saw
see
you
the
before.
screen?
There you are.
And can you see the screen?
Speak up.
We can't hear you.
May not be Chuck's fault.
Can you hear us?
I can hear everybody.
I can too. I think the problem is.
Try again, Chuck.
We can, Chuck, we
I
can hear you.
Testing, 1, 2, 3.
I think it's an issue with the meeting room.
We have a volume problem here.
Okay. Testing, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3.
Chuck, I think they're working on fixing the problem.
All right.
It's not on your end.
Whoa.
Got it now.
I think we fixed it. No, it works.
Okay, already.
I've been changing ring.
Can you hear us?
Now we can, yes.
All
Yeah,
right, good.
there we are. We can hear you now, Chuck.
Great, and can you see the illustration?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Yeah.
Great. This is a project on South Greeley Avenue, right across the street from the Triangle. It's in the Houlihan office building, and on the second floor, they had a full office, and the owner has decided to put an apartment up there. Actually, he wanted one large apartment, which kind of fits with what the resolution from a while ago states that if we do other housing up on that second floor, in this area in the front of the building, it has to be one apartment. And we also are required to have one apartment maximum of 1,000 square feet, and that's what I show shaded, 1,000 square feet of an apartment. And and for the owner, he would like it to be a 2-bedroom apartment, but since it's so narrow and we need windows and light and ventilation, I created a partition of sort. Sabrina, you said it was a
divider.
dividing wall that doesn't go to the ceiling, but it's a separating wall that has some kind of privacy for this bed, and then another bedroom on this side with its windows and ventilation that can be closed off. The access to this apartment is from the rear, but we do have a way out to the front or the way out to the back. We have 2 ways to get out of the second floor. And we have, in this right-hand side, we have the trash the trash containers already there in place. We're in the parking district. We do not need to have the required parking, which was quite a bit for a retail store or an office with a couple of apartments. We do have variances for 3 stories, which is the back half of this building. You're looking at the second floor of the building and the first floor of 2 apartments. And you go upstairs and you get to 2 more apartments, not apartments, but they're bedrooms. It's the loft bedrooms. And the full height of the project is 29 feet to the midpoint of the roof. It's 29 feet high, and inside it's got 3 stories. And I think we call the top story, because it's within the roof and some of the slopes. I think I have a picture of that. I don't want to do that because I have to get out of this and get back into something. But it's a 3-story building, 29 feet high, and we have a variance for that, which Sabrina and the staff would like me to add to these notes for reference in the future. And that's about it, I think.
Okay, terrific. Sabrina, would you run through your comments and give us some clarification as to, we had this back in 2019 and where we are with this?
Sure. Yes, this application came in 2019 and the board reviewed and approved apartments in this location in 2019. That application expired. A building permit was not applied for, so therefore the resolution of approval does not stand anymore. You are now reviewing an application to create one unit in the former office space or existing office space. It would be former office space. In accordance with the 2007 resolution, as Chuck had mentioned, this building is only supposed to have 3 residential units. So this is in compliance with the 2007 approval of the project. Chuck also indicated that the variances that have been issued on this building, I have asked for him to reference them in the zoning conformance table on the plan, so we don't have to keep digging and we have one point of reference. There was an increase in the building height, as he stated, a decrease in the front yard setback. There was an increase in the floor area ratio and an increase allowed in building coverage. So all of those variances are have been issued by the ZBA, and I've just asked that they be referenced in the table. There is this is considered a type 2 action in accordance with SECR. So there's no further review required, and we have noticed this as a public hearing to expedite the process for the applicant. And that's all of my comments.
Okay, terrific.
Can I jump in and say one more thing that coordinates with what Sabrina said? You see this line way over here at the site plan? I'm showing the line. That is the 10-foot setback that every property is supposed to have on South Greeley, actually in the business district. Everybody wanted a 10-foot setback. And then from that line, you were allowed to go back 70 feet. And that was your building envelope. Well, what I did is I gave up a bunch of front yard here. You can see the ramp that gets up to the front porch and everything. And I asked the zoning board, would it be okay if I put it back here? And so now I have a back porch and I have the building starting at the 10-foot mark, but I've added a little bit of building in the back. So it's sort of a balance that they didn't have a problem with. I just want to let you know that we traded some front yard for extra building in the backyard. And again, proved.
Good, thank you. Any comments, questions from board members?
I have questions.
Sure.
I just want some clarifications. Conceptually, I'm very supportive of additional housing units downtown. But I just want to understand, the ground floor is retail today, the second floor is an office, and the third floor is already two existing apartments, is that right?
Yes, second and third floor are duplexes in the back. May I get out of this drawing and show you a clearer picture?
Sure.
All right.
This is office now, and this is.
This is a duplex from the second to the.
Can you see that?
Not yet.
No.
Not yet?
Nope.
No. While you're trying to do that, can I ask the next question, Chuck?
Sure.
So, just so I understand, when it comes to parking, this building relies on public parking, street parking, elsewhere to meet its parking requirement, is that right?
Well, yeah, I'm gonna go back to share, go back to the survey. You see over here, these on the right-hand side, just above the title block, can you see that?
Yeah.
Number 56, 58, 59, these are all the properties along South Greeley Avenue. Every single one of those properties goes back into the parking lot. Every one of these properties has given a permission to come around the Bank of America and drive over everybody's property to share this parking lot, 156 spaces.
It is part of the parking district, so.
It was then formed into a parking district, and it combined everybody's property to share their parking. this particular building is only 35 feet wide and needs like 12 cars, but 13 cars, not possible to put there. But if you combine and share the parking lot, which they do, then it seems like everybody gets to share a little bit of the parking. And some people don't even have any property back there, and they're using the parking lot.
Got it.
So I don't know if that answers your question, but everybody's sharing one big parking lot.
Right, and the parking lot is a shared ownership or it's private
No,
ownership?
everybody owns their own property. They just gave
Got it.
permission, an easement to the town to cross over
And
everybody's lines.
and the amount of property that this property owner has of the parking lot, does that sufficiently cover the parking requirement?
No,
Got
No,
it.
That's
because
not
the
how
park-
that works.
the parking requirements for this building would be 18 cars.
Got it, okay, got it.
And it's 35 feet wide and he can't do it, but if you share all of the spaces, some of them are vacant, some of them are not there, some of them are whatever, but they manage, every one of these buildings is using everybody else's parking.
Got it, I understand, so it's relying on additional property to meet its parking requirement, got it. The last question I have is about whether this is a one or a two bedroom. Not my area of expertise, the building code, but I mean, are you trying, like, what is happening here? Is this a one bedroom or a two bedroom?
2 bedroom, well, actually, believe it or not, you want to really call it, it's a 1 bedroom studio.
Does this meet building code? Because I'm worried
Yep.
that this is like a,
Yep,
there's a reason.
yeah,
that
here's
this
the
is-
building code, when in case I have to have access, I can't close my bedroom off, not this
Why
one.
not?
Because I'm not near an exit window, I need 2 ways out of this
Right.
bedroom.
So he's being cute, I just don't know if it's code compliant, but that's not my issue.
The building inspector will make that determination.
Yep.
We've already done one of these next door, right over here in North Greeley, it's not a problem, I mean, on South Greeley. It's as a studio, we've done it in New York City, I mean, there is no closed off door, so technically people can walk around this, I keep forgetting the name, Sabrina, what are you calling it?
A dividing wall.
A dividing wall. It doesn't go to the ceiling, it doesn't make this room private, but it does give it some privacy. And there is exiting capability through this window as the second way out of this space. First, the other way out is the stairs.
Sorry, so how do you get out through the second story window?
The window opens, it's an exit window, it's called egress window.
And then what do you do?
You jump on the fireman's ladder,
Got it, okay.
that's how it works. And I think I remember I told you a long time ago, the building heights were set based on how tall our ladders were. That was the old days.
So I have a question about the parking, not that I think it's a problem or a huge concern, but we keep on assigning extra for new development, keep on assigning the extra parking required to the parking district. And in this particular case, the closest parking available for that is this lot, which is this large cross easement. So the question I have is, anybody done, I always get worried that maybe we're exceeding the actual capacity of the parking district by adding these things. So the question that I'm asking, maybe there's no answer tonight, but maybe it's something to look out for, is what is the aggregate demand, parking demand, based on our parking ratios, existing parking ratios in the code, for all of these buildings which are, that share this cross easement along South Greeley, and against the parking capacity there? And are we close to the capacity? Have we exceeded it? Is that part of any analysis the town is doing, just to keep track of that in this particular case?
No, not that I know of, Tom. I do know one thing, if every one of these properties had to do their own parking in their own fenced-in parking lot, there'd be nothing happening on that road.
No, I'm not against the parking district at all. I think it's, actually, I think that's what we ought to be doing on North Greeley on the east side of the street, but that's a whole different issue. I'm just wondering whether in this particular case, the town, not you, Chuck, it's not your job, but the town would be tracking these numbers against the parking demand just to make sure that things are still, in sync and we're not running out of parking.
in this particular?
Yeah,
We're keeping track of them, we're keeping track. That's why I asked for it to be put on the site plan, what that parking requirement is. To date, there is no further analysis other than what I've been asking for.
If in this case, there's a switch from an office to an apartment, wouldn't that actually represent a reduction in the parking?
Yes, it does.
Yes, it will.
there was 1,000 square feet of, there was 1,000 square feet of office, which is 250 square feet each, so there's, 4 cars, we're down to 1.3 cars now.
Right, okay.
Very good,
Anything?
thank you.
No, you guys covered it.
Okay,
May I make a request, Robert?
certainly.
This is a public meeting, and I would wonder if it's possible to put on those few notes that Sabrina wanted, after you sign this approval, and we just submit it with those few notes on and let her check it. Is that possible?
Yeah, what we probably will do, unless, are there any questions, members of the public? Anyone with a hand raised on this application?
No hands are raised online.
Okay, thank you. So what we can do is close this public hearing and then just direct staff to drop the resolution. And presumably next time we meet, you'll be all set, it's done and set. I believe that those notes can be conditioned, for you to do that after the resolution's approved.
Okay, my problem, I thought this was a public meeting already, so there's
It
another
is,
public.
no, it is. It is a public hearing. So
Oh.
what we'll do is close it and then just move on and just have the resolution ready for next time and it's set.
Okay, nope.
Okay?
All right.
Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Is there a motion to direct staff to drop a resolution for the application for the next time we meet or whenever you can get to it?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Thank you.
alrighty, very good.
Good night.
Good night.
See you later. See
We
you.
move to our next item, and this is an informal hearing. This is on the Simpson property, 35 Hammond Ridge. This is an application for a site development plan approval to amend the site development plan approval to construct a pool and driveway. So I think we saw this a few years ago.
Yep.
Hopefully you're enjoying your pool.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having us. Yes, 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago, we launched the project. We built the pool. We put water in it this summer. It works great. The only problem we had is when we were doing the driveway, we let common sense prevail. We realized that the design on the plan, we needed an extra 5 or 6 feet to be able to have the cars safely turn into the driveway without having to make multiple turns to get into the garages. And so, I don't know, do you guys want to pull the illustrations up on your side or, but we're effectively
Whatever's
asking.
easier, if you need me to pull them up, I can pull them up if you wanna do it.
I'll let you pull them up.
Okay,
You can drive it better than me.
alright, let me share my screen.
But everything looks great and works great. And so nothing that we're asking for here has not already been built. And actually, we're looking for approval on the as-built, so we don't have to cut the driveway because it really would make it both unsafe and uneasy to get into the garage bays. So, do you want to start with, want to go 2 more forward?
Well, we could just pinpoint, I guess there's 2 issues here, and that is pinpointing the ask for the extra 5 or 6 feet by the driveway. And I guess we have, about 289 feet of additional coverage. But I think that you've offered in mitigation for that, some additional plantings in a key area that actually might function more effectively than what the original planting plan was around the pool with Forsythia.
Correct, and the majority of those plantings have already been installed as well. And what's circled in red here is what's been built compared to what was approved. I would also note what's been built is still smaller than what we started with before we even put the pool in. So our driveway is smaller than before we started the project. It's just as tight as we could make the driveway. And then, a slide up, we can show you where we added an extra 300 square feet of plantings.
When we looked at this, did we decide to narrow the driveway itself coming up from the road, or did we?
Yes.
We did that.
Well, in meetings with the planning board before we came to you, it was asked that we narrow the driveways. We originally cut like 8 feet from actually I think it looks like we cut 12 feet from the driveway in the plan that you approved. The next slide can show the as-built before, and in the end, it looks like we needed to add back 6 of the 12.
Okay.
If you go to the next slide.
Is that the one you want, Mr. Simpson?
No, one more forward. So this slide is before the pool. This is an as-built before the pool. The driveway used to be 43.5 feet. Now the driveway is 36 feet. We only had permission to have a 30-foot space, which is just too small for a four-car garage to
2 new teen drivers.
and 2 teen drivers.
They need 75 feet.
Yeah, actually, neither of them are very good at putting the car in the garage. So.
Yeah. I've had that happen.
And,
I almost lost a garage.
I've done it. As a teen.
Okay,
And
good.
if you go forward one more slide, you'll see the mitigation planting. So the original area that was requested and has been installed, we added a 10 by 30 area on top of that, in anticipation of the extra space we use in the driveway and because it looked better for us.
Right, as I understand it, this is not there. The pool plantings, forsythias.
Right, we did not plant the forsythia behind the pool because of the way that the topography was. It just doesn't make a ton of sense. I mean, we will do it if you want us to do it, but we thought we'd come and ask to not do it, given that we didn't have a planting barrier up here on the back end of the property.
Okay, sure,
No, what's the visibility to the neighbors then, if you don't have
that's the
the,
issue.
Yeah.
forsythia?
They planted a double or triple line of evergreens across, and then we have forsythia up on the hill, like higher up there.
Okay.
Right, but that's just random forsythia, and there's an area to the left and right of what's been existing planting here, which is natural. So the whole goal is from the neighbor's property line to the, I'll give the direction, to the north of the property to the south, that whole arc is actually completely natural.
Well,
Okay.
now I'm having trouble understanding specifically what you're talking about here with regard where the evergreens are and the.
Mr. Simpson, can you annotate this drawing?
Yeah, I guess if I can drive, is there a way I can, let's see,
You can annotate. You don't have to drive, you can annotate.
let's see, whiteboard, you cannot, what button do I get to do that? You know?
If you, I don't know if you're on a PC, if up at top, you should have a menu that would pop down and there's an annotate button.
On mine, if I hover my cursor over the screen that's being shared, a little pen pops up at the bottom left.
No, unfortunately, I don't have a pen. Maybe I can describe it. If you look at the northbound property line, where our property goes to the north. So in other words, that northbound long property line there, and then there's the arcing property line to the southwest. Yeah, Mr. Cioli just put it in. So that property line there, that whole area there through, yep. And then on the other side is all natural. And then, go to the, and then go to the north side. That's the south side where the green is coming in, and then the north property line. Almost all there up to the septic area is natural. That V that has been drawn is the goal of that is to get that all natural.
And the evergreens go from the, like, the septic down towards where we have, and down behind the, like, the little trees that are drawn in,
The little trees
that
that
are
are.
on either side of the property line.
Right, just to,
The evergreens are behind that and going up to the, natural area.
up to the natural area. So what I just wanna know, those 1, 2, 3, 4, what are they, 10 little, towards the bottom of the drawing, beyond the end of that green line. We don't have the drawing to help us understand this. So, right there. So those are the evergreens, right?
No, those are not evergreens, those are maple trees. And then there's evergreens not on our property line, so slightly out of scope for it. These evergreens are on the other side of the property line, i.e. on the neighbor's property to the north. Where those, next to those three evergreens that cross the three, where you have the circle with the X.
Yep.
Those are maples in there, there are evergreens as well scattered throughout there too.
So let me just, okay, so to the left of that, forget north-south for a minute, but to the left of that circle is your neighbor's property, and there's a house there somewhere?
But the house is up by the mitigation plantings up here. Their house is, I guess, how would I describe it? Their house is toward by where it says Exhibit 4. Their house is, their driveway is over there.
Like
So
by
the
the
purpose,
E.
so.
By the E is where, let's say, their house is obviously a few feet further onto their property, but their house starts over there.
So the purpose of the, unless I'm mistaken, the purpose of the forsythia was to screen the swimming pool from that direction?
That was one of the purposes, yes. But the problem is remember, we're the elevation difference. Our neighbor probably sits, I don't know, let's say 60 or 70 feet higher than us. So a 2 or 3 foot forsythia next to the pool doesn't screen anything for them, because it's 70 feet below them or something.
So you're saying that this triangle area there, where you've indicated additional planting, that is going to serve the screening function?
That plus the natural, in other words, there's also area there outside of that, much bigger than that triangle, that's all natural, that we would like to leave as natural. It's not just the extra area that we planted, but there's already existing,
Okay.
natural, I don't know what you call it, but just, untouched, stuff.
I just don't know why we asked for the forsythia to begin with if we didn't need it, if it's all natural anyway and it's properly screened. I just don't get it, but.
Yeah.
Well, I think we might have put it, I don't know if you asked for it or we just happened to put it there.
Okay.
So, Sabrina, can you run through your comments and then we'll get to Dennis, because I think Dennis has got some information about the plantings that'll perhaps help us.
Sure. I really don't have any comments other than, they're not making anything non-conforming. It was recently just approved. They're just looking for an additional, I think it was, hang on a second.
289 feet, I think.
Yeah, 289.67 square feet of coverage. And then Dennis will speak to the mitigation. In the plans that were submitted, they're proposing an additional 300 square feet of planting to compensate for the 289.67 increase in coverage.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, so as Mr. Simpson was explaining, so I kind of think of these in two different columns. So in running through my memo, I do recall meeting the Simpsons on the property when we were prepping the mitigation planting area, the triangular hat-shaped area, and we're going to achieve, sort of the site prep in order to install those plantings. And then, being on the site, yes, from a field call perspective, in consideration of what the language in the resolution was for, including the line of sight pool screening, that no, the forsythia were not going to achieve that. So the recommendation at the time that I recall was, I think something alternative plan would, be considered. In consideration of the original plan not working, and in visiting the site last week, just quickly, I was looking at, snow cover, But they are correct that, there are rows of evergreens that appear to be planted on the neighbor's property. And it is in the vicinity of this cluster of red maples. I don't know if that neighbor is here tonight or not. I know I received calls early in the project that neighbor was just concerned from a screening perspective, and I believe that's why that installation of evergreens, staggered rows, was completed. But and I guess this is for the decision of the planning board, in reviewing the resolution, something or some effort needed to be put forth to just accommodate that condition, which to me is separate from the mitigation plantings, which at this juncture I had no issue with respect to what they're proposing and how it was being advanced. And obviously I, have to want to take another look, come spring growing season, et cetera. But I think that, and I recall discussion of the planning board last time, that even though a neighbor may be able to, fortify that screen, that's not necessarily where all the obligation is supposed to fall onto. So that's why at this point, that was the part that I wanted to point out that I thought needed maybe some an alternative, just sort of proposed, and maybe further up slope where it would make more sense, and then not be on top of the pool, but achieve that goal.
So, you like where they're putting the plants, but I think you indicated that you would like to see perhaps a few evergreens in there with the forsythia that they put in that triangle to enhance the screening?
I'm kind of in separate locations, like I'm moving away from the triangle and more towards maybe even where you have the existing maples. There's an opportunity to spot plant or either side, just sort of the E for effort. That's where I'm kind of thinking.
And kind of naturalize it, because it's not just in a, one big row, et cetera, kind of like a natural blend.
Right, I mean, in essence, you're not putting all the burden on the neighbor, but you're not replicating just to put in another row, but you are making an attempt to have some occlusion, as a result of those evergreens, filling in over time.
Good, okay. Got it.
So we actually, I don't know if you noticed when you were out here, we actually did, it's not on the plan here, because it's kind of out of scope of the plan. We bought all the forsythia around the pool, and instead of putting them around the pool, we put them up here, some of them in between the existing maples, just to see if they'd take and stay there under all that shade, and some kind of toward the septic expansion area, and some back here. We just we already had them on site, so we just planted them.
No, that's good. That makes, if I had the plants, I would have planted them too. I'm with you on that. Understood.
Yeah, and so we bought no, actually, did we buy?
Yeah, 24 forsythia.
Yeah, we bought 24.
Yeah,
We bought them, yeah. We bought them, but we bought them and planted 24, then we just didn't plant them next to the pool, because they would have looked silly there and they wouldn't have done anything. So we attempted, as much as we like our next door neighbor, we don't want to see them either, and they don't want to see us. So we're both, I think, equally happy to plant stuff on our borders.
Okay.
Yeah, I've had the forsythia in various places that we live for years, and they really do want the sunlight. So I wouldn't get too excited about that aspect of what you said, because I don't.
That's why we only put a few there, and we kind of put them in areas where we thought some sun got through these maple trees. We
only put like 6 to 8 of them, I think, in the shade, and then the rest are in between where the red maples end, going up to the natural area.
But and for what it's worth, if they take, because of whatever angle the sun hits it at, because what's unusual about our site is it's very steep over there. So even though they're under a maple, they still may catch some sun because the land is not flat. And so that's kind of why we're hopeful. But I understand your point.
Okay. Be aware.
Yeah.
By the way, is the neighbor here? No? Okay.
I just
Please.
I wanna just note this reminded me of an experience I had this weekend at the Whole Foods. The parking lot is so hard to navigate. The turns are extremely tight. Coming out of the Whole Foods, taking a right towards the exit street that leads you to the high school, that right turn might be the worst turn in all of Newcastle. It's terrible. And the reason I bring it up is just to say that, you know, what we draw on paper is one thing, and how it acts in real life is a whole different thing. This applicant was before us a while ago, and, you know, worked with us in very good faith, and it seems like what was designed and then built didn't exactly work as needed. And so it sounds like what we're discussing here is just like, what is the best appropriate mitigation? I mean, I defer to our experts, but I think we should, as quickly as possible, move this along, because this is already in effect, right? This is already, this is a legalization ultimately, right? The pool has been in use for a year at least?
2 months last summer.
2 months last summer. Well, that counts as a year of pool use, right? But just, you know, if there was an issue, I would assume that we would have heard from the neighbors, and I welcome, you know, concerns if there are any, but otherwise, I think we should.
I think it's a very good point, and we have to go to a public hearing anyway.
Right.
So we'll schedule a public hearing. If there are any objections, we can certainly hear from the neighbors at that point. They'll be on notice about the meeting. And I agree, I think that they've worked in good faith with us, and I think for the minimal amount of additional impact with the driveway to make it safer and more useful. And I think that they've already taken measures to offset that. I don't have a
Our
problem.
understanding was today was gonna be a public hearing.
No, it's informal, so it starts with an informal, then we go to the public. But the public should be in a couple weeks. I don't think we are going to be asking for any changes, are we, Sabrina or Bob?
No, would you like staff to draft a resolution for the public hearing?
Yeah, in anticipation of approval, sure.
Right.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with the driveway expansion.
Yeah.
I mean, 30 feet, I mean, we draw things and, you know, we don't really maybe
Do we need a
understand that
motion
30
to have
feet.
the,
the
Yes,
30
you do.
Can I finish? The 30 feet is probably, you know, pushing it in terms of it being too tight in order to be a comfortable dimension to be able to pull a car out and make the turn. So I just think that this is an adjustment that's entirely reasonable.
Yep, I agree.
I mean, it's only an extra 5 feet.
Yeah, I think it's fine. So what we need then is a motion to schedule a public hearing. Felicia, what does that look like on the schedule? With the understanding that I don't think we need any additional information, and all that we might need is just the drafting of a resolution. Easy for me to say, you're drafting it.
We can do it for the 21st.
Of this month?
Yes.
Oh, great. So what we can do is if there's a motion then to schedule a public hearing for March 21?
so moved.
Second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
And is there a motion to instruct staff to draft a resolution at that public hearing that would be ready for adoption, assuming that the public hearing is closed and we move forward?
So moved.
Second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so we'll see you on March 21st.
Just a logistical thing. First of all, thank you everyone so much for this. This all sounds wonderful. Always a pleasure working with everyone here and appreciate everyone's insights. There's this, we're literally flying back from Japan on the 21st. We land at 11 a.m. So if there's no flight delays, we're good to be at the meeting, but there could be a small chance we can't be there. So it's up to you guys.
Why don't we make it to the April 4th?
I mean, do we need to be there?
Do they want us to preemptively move it back?
Do
Yeah.
they have to be here?
I'm not so sure they really have to be here.
That's what I was saying. Exactly. We don't have to be here. Just keep going without us. I mean, we'll try to be here. Don't get me
I
wrong.
understand.
Okay.
Thoughts on that? Jen, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, typically, I would recommend that the applicant or an applicant's representative be available. Just know that, you know, if you're consenting to us proceeding without you being present, you know, there may be questions that come up that need to be answered. Especially if there's public comment, so we can't guarantee that, you know, everything's going to close out that night, but if you're willing to allow us to proceed without you being present, then that's fine.
So we're willing to proceed without being present. our goal will be to be present, but we won't know until that morning if we'll be present. So,
Understood.
but our goal will be to be present. Yeah, and we'll have already seen, I assume we'll have seen the resolution in advance of the meeting, so if, you know, I feel pretty covered there anyway.
Well, I guess you'll be looking at it from Japan, right?
Yes, we'll be closely watching our email.
We have Wi-Fi.
We have Wi-Fi on.
Okay. An international resolution. We haven't done one of these in a while.
This trip was supposed to be 3 years ago, before the pool.
We were supposed to be to China in June of 2020.
Yeah, so,
Okay. Excellent. Okay, we will see you then. Thank you.
all right, thank you so much, everyone.
Okay, we move now to our next item. This is the informal hearing for Deutsch to Ashington Drive, an application for a site development plan approval for the construction of an in-ground fiberglass pool and patio.
Das ist richtig.
Assume I'm supposed to come up here?
Yes, sir.
My name's Tony Passari, I'm the engineer for the Deutsches. I prepared the plan and I hope you have one in front of you, so okay, so we know what we're looking at. Basically, they are proposing to put a pool in their backyard. And the pool itself is not the problem, the access to construct the pool becomes the problem. I have to create a construction access drive from their driveway to the back to get to where the pool is proposed. And in doing so, I go over the grading limit line. Well, that's that blue area that you see there. And then there's that green line that goes around, that is the grading limit line, sorry. And the total, I have disturbance, that heavy black dotted line is the 150-foot setback from the wetlands.
Right.
So basically, I've got a roughly 2,000 square feet of disturbance within the setback for the 150-foot setback. And I have about 500, I think it's 500 feet, yeah, 550 is the area of that blue area. And that's what we're here for. I assume we need a wetland permit from the board. And that's why we're here.
Well, and also the clearing grading limit line is another issue,
Correct.
those two things, yeah. Okay. Sabrina, do you wanna run through your notes? Your memo?
Sure. So this is a type 2 action in accordance with the State Environmental Quality Review Act, so there's no further environmental review required. The application itself is compliant with the zoning setbacks and coverage requirements, so you don't have any concerns there. As the applicant indicated, the construction access is outside of the clearing and grading limit line and within the 150-foot buffer. In the past, anything that's within the 150-foot buffer, mitigation is, and beyond the clearing and grading limit line, mitigation is usually required. The disturbance is temporary, but there should be more information as to how it will be restored. And we will need more just documentation or something to give us a clue as to how the restoration will occur.
Technically, right now, it's lawn. And so when it's all done, the idea would be is you work your way out and remove the gravel, which is the construction road. And then you replace it with the topsoil that you've saved in the topsoil pile. And then you seed it. So we're not taking down any trees or any bushes or anything like that.
And not regrading.
No. That access drive is literally going right on top of the ground that's there. We'll scratch out some topsoil and grass that's there, put down filter fabric, 4 to 6 inches of stone to use as the driveway for the construction vehicles to get to the back. And then when you're done, you work your way out by removing the stone, pulling out the filter fabric, and then you send a bunch of guys in there with wheelbarrows and spread the topsoil and seed it. That's really, I had a note there that all disturbed areas will be topsoiled and seeded. I don't know if you need Sabrina, I don't know if you need anything else besides that note, if you need
I think that, I think Dennis may want something else, I'm not sure, I'm satisfied with that. Dennis, did you want anything additional?
No, I mean, I'm sure it's been long for a while, so,
I think since they moved in, since the house was built.
right, cause then, you know, depending on, you know, if we're going down that rabbit hole, then, you know, do we have to do an analysis of the surface coverage of the entire property relative to that green line and then restore it to what? To what period, what time? So I was just focusing on, it's temporary, it's construction access, get it back to what it was, stabilize it. And in essence, there's, you know, no functional loss to the buffer because it's been long for a while, I'm sure.
Okay, the septic area, that's existing, right?
That's, yes. And I propose to put silt fence around it to protect it, not that they're going anywhere near it, but just to be on the safe side.
Does that septic area also include the expansion area?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Okay, anyone else, any questions, thoughts?
The where is the nearest home relative to the new pool that's being put in?
There's nothing well, let's see, how do I describe this? North is to the right, so if we go east, that's all wetlands down there. You can tell, you know, by the wetlands, that's literally on the property, so there's nobody for quite a distance there. There's all trees and maybe some houses. The rear line there is the line between Newcastle and Yorktown. So there may be, bless you, whoever sneezed. The line there is the line between Yorktown and Newcastle, then there may be some houses in the back, but they can't really see anything because it's all treed. And I think there's a neighbor to the west, but the house is quite a ways away also. These are pretty big lots.
If I may, for the board's reference, in my memo on my first page, there is an aerial photograph highlighting the property. You can see the neighboring houses.
Yep.
Yeah, it looks like I'm looking on my phone, it looks like it's a non-issue. The closest house is on the other side of the house, so that unless they have X-ray vision, they won't be able to see the pool.
Correct.
Can I say something on Mr. Deutsch? Hello? Good
Sure,
afternoon,
sure,
everybody.
come on up.
Hi. Nice to meet everybody. Just wanna let everyone know, thank you for taking your time, but also, we've been in this house about 2 years. You can't see another house from the property, which is one of the reasons why we liked it. I guess in the back of the property where Tony said is the line for Yorktown, all trees. Then there's the wetlands, which is all trees, and on the other side of the house is all trees. Can't see a house. If you came over now for a cocktail, well, it'd be dark, but if you came over when it was when it was light, you would say, wow, this is private, it's private. So just wanted to point that out to everybody.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
So you rescinded the invitation, or what happened?
The invitation is open.
We're done, we're on the road.
I make a nice martini.
Yeah, see, what I tell you.
As long as I don't have to drive in Yorktown. Thank you.
I think for the record, we should have some photographs just to back up that what was just said. And that would make it good for, you know, let's say years in the future, somebody comes along and says, I can see this or that or whatever, because 3 trees fell down in the wrong place. Then you know, everybody could sit down and talk about that and, you know.
I mean, obviously from the south side, the house blocks the pool. But I could stand, say, where the pool is proposed to be and take shots, you know, pictures, not shots.
Yeah, the other 3.
Pictures one east, west, and to the north.
Okay, well, you can save that, you know, little bit of ink on you know, some machine. So
Yep.
that's-
Or the other thing is just, if you just wanna mark on this map, the distance to the, you know, the edge of the homes, yeah.
Oh, sure,
Yeah,
that I could get from
That would be another thing, I would add that to it, what it is the distance to the homes roughly.
Yep.
And then have the pictures to back up, what conditions are right now.
Yep.
And it's still a good time because the leaves aren't out and you can get a sense of that. Although it's certainly somewhat more sensitive with a pool in the summertime when the leaves are out, so. But still, I'd like it for the record.
Excuse me, one more comment. The pool that is being proposed is fairly close to our home. It's within the setbacks and everything, because we didn't wanna bother anybody with the variance. So I'm happy tomorrow.
Mr. Deutsch, can I please ask you to come up to the microphone so we can get it on tape?
Yep,
Yeah, I'm
thank you,
sorry.
Sabrina.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. So I'm happy tomorrow, if it'll help everybody, to go out and take a video of the surroundings.
As long as you label it and we know what it is.
I'll send it to Tony, and then Tony can send it to whoever needs to see it.
Perfect.
I'll do that tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay?
Excellent.
Make sense?
Sure.
Okay.
I think pictures is probably better than
I can take a
video.
video and pictures. I'll
Right,
send a
pictures.
bunch of stuff.
Yeah,
You
pictures,
know,
'cause this
phones will
way,
work.
just,
Phone work.
Just do the pictures, I mean, it's.
No video?
Yeah, no
No,
video.
no, we don't
Okay.
need the video.
Yeah, then
Okay,
I
so
have-
basically I'm standing where the pool would be and I'm taking pictures
In three,
around.
Yeah.
not around totally, just in 3 dimensions.
Okay.
Because the house, we
Right,
believe
now,
the house.
The house is here,
is gonna
so
shield.
this view, and that
And
view.
that view.
Yes.
Easy,
I'll
thank you.
show- I'm marking on the map.
Okay, not a problem. Thank you, everybody.
Okay. So, any other questions, comments? So we have to go to public on this and there's some minor things here. I mean, a couple of pictures, no big deal. Again, we have room on March 21 if they can get the pictures in quickly and, like tomorrow?
He lives up, in town, so he could have the pictures here tomorrow. If that, I don't wanna press it, I'm just
No,
saying.
I'm just trying to think.
Think about your schedule, yeah.
Yeah,
Because we'll be looking for a resolution, I'm sure. as well.
yeah, I think we may need to push that to April 4th.
Okay. So, is there a motion then to schedule a public hearing on this application for April 4th?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And is there a motion to ask staff to prepare a resolution in anticipation of approval on the April 4th meeting?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Great.
great.
Can I
Thank you
just
very
say-
much.
Thank
Nice
you.
meeting
Just
you all.
one item.
Take care.
Mr. Pizzari, can I just say one item?
Sure.
Just in the wetland terminology, nitpicking, is the stream labeling, is that like an artifact that you can't change that word or?
Now,
could
did I
you-
leave it on there? I was taking it off.
Cause I know we discussed it at the pre-app,
It says stone retaining wall.
over here, we're talking about stream
Oh,
dissipates and that's why my memo was
No, I'll take it off.
moving away from that so that you would not put one.
Right, you know
It's
what,
not.
I think I took it off in a different spot, I forgot, I didn't see it, I
Okay.
took it off in a different spot.
Okay, I mean, yeah, you can call it whatever you want on my memo, just, right, don't call it the watercourse
Right,
or
yeah,
stream,
you got
that's
it.
all, yep, thank you.
Thank you.
Another
I just
wetland
want-
disappears.
It's not a stream, it's like a runoff
Yeah.
with, it's like a runoff area.
Yeah, no,
I would
Dennis has
say-
described.
If you read my
Okay.
memo, you go through the clean water act designation.
Okay.
So, right,
Okay,
I was
thank
trying to
you.
push it away, I'm with
Right.
you.
Okay,
Very good, thank you.
alright, thank you,
So we'll see you April 4th.
okay.
Okay, our next item is Kolov, 8 Cynthia Court, application for a site development plan approval for the construction of an in-ground pool and patio with stormwater controls and the relocation of the existing septic tank.
Hi, I'm Mary Ann Rivera. I submitted the application on behalf of the Colabs for our interesting pool that we're trying to get approved. So for the site plans that we have submitted, there was a couple of challenges that we had to overcome. The main challenge, the first challenge was the construction and grading lines. There was an original set of construction and grading lines prior years ago. Then when I guess they finished this development and for them to get it finished, there was a new set of construction and grading lines. So both, for them to install a pool, it was asked in the pre-meeting that I try to keep it, cause we had a whole other pool design, to keep it within the old construction and grading lines. but it's not possible to keep it within the new construction and grading lines. So there's two delineations on the map. Yellow dotted line, which is the current construction and grading lines, and then the black is the old construction and grading lines, quote unquote, that was submitted with the original plans by Kellerton Sessions years ago. So we put this pool sort of like shoved into this little tiny area. Originally, again, they had a bigger one, but we kept within our front yard setbacks, our side yard setbacks. We're way far from our rear yard setbacks. Part of it is we do need to move the septic tank location, so we're at a safe distance from the pool and septic tank. So that would get moved over to the left side over there. The other issue, these are the main issues. The other issue that occurred during the process, there were some old trees from the original Kellerton session plans that were demarcated. They were cut down 2 years ago. The owners did replant. So part of the permit is those trees, I believe, were never written up from Dennis's work, that we need to put it in there, that they did a bunch of replanting with some pines, Magnolia virginiana, some viburnum. They planted a nice red, Japanese red maple on the property. There's one tree to complete this plan that would still have to be cut down, and that we can do replacements of any sort and type for that, based upon the spacing that we have. We do have some room up on the left side of the house that we can add trees and stuff to over there to keep out of that shade.
Do we know where the trees have been planted that replaced the ones that were cut down?
The engineer didn't, they're all planted along the road here. So along like Cynthia Court driveway there.
Right.
And then there was one red maple that was planted at the end of the driveway over here on that side. That was a nice size Japanese red maple.
Do we have a sense of what the number of trees were or what the diameter of deviation of the
I
trees
can give
were?
a write-up for it of what it was, but it was about 15 8 to 10 foot white and blue spruces. I think it was 5 Magnolia virginiana, 3 viburnum tomentosums that were planted off the top of my head.
Okay.
So there was replanting that was done and completed, so
Weren't there pines on the northern side of this property where you've got this underground propane tank? Weren't there pines over there? Because we
There
looked at, there was
are-
a proposal for, last time we saw this, for a pool in that area.
So there are some older pines that were planted in there, I believe part of the original construction.
Yes, mhm.
They are still there. Some of them are struggling severely. There was a lot of lack of watering with the original planting,
Yeah.
so we've been able to salvage whatever we can from the original planting. It was in between the original builder and them taking over and the owner, them not watering for the first couple years, that those pines took a really heavy hit. Even the foundation plantings and stuff and
Yeah.
everything that were put in took a really heavy hit because of lack of water, so.
Yeah, and this
So,
is
but-
a very rocky area.
Yeah, everything that we've planted 2 years ago, we've got it really nice and established. I think I had problems with one viburnum the first year, flagged out on me, but
Good.
overcome that, so. So there's a lot of moving parts with these constructions and grading lines, but we've tried to give them something that can fit in and still be usable. There is, to keep everything streamlined and whatnot, there's only a small patio area around it and they're fine and happy with that. They just wanna be able to have access and a pool for their kids to enjoy and play in, so. And there is a proposed hot tub for outside the back, lower entrance of the house as well to be put in, so.
Okay.
Sorry, there's no request, the hot tub isn't triggering any issues, right?
The hot tub doesn't trigger any issues, no, no.
And I just so and the shape of the pool is because of the shape of the clearing and grading limit line?
The shape of the pool is due to the shape of
The old,
the old clearing and grading limit lines and the new clearing and grading limit lines and the setbacks that we're trying to keep in with, so it has to be really a gunite built pool due to the shape of it. We're not able to put in something prefab to preform due to that,
right,
trying to keep in with everything that it is. I mean, in the end, it can be a pretty cool pool and used very interestingly. And the owners are fine with that. They still get something that's a okay size. It's not their 20 by 40 that they wanted, but they're willing to conform to get it put in.
So, I'm a little bit, you help me out with this, a little bit confused about the reason to locate it in this corner. It looks as though from the grading lines that I can see here, the existing grades that you are going to, and the retaining walls that you have on the drawing, you're going to have to cut pretty significantly down in order to get it in, is that right, cause it's on a slope?
Yeah, we have to cut down a little to put it in. The retaining walls are in the front here to do our retaining for us.
Right,
I think the highest point is, I believe the engineer did it, it's either 6 or 7 feet and then slopes down to do it.
and those are the ramp to get down to it then from the house.
Correct, yes.
So, and in order to do this, you'll have to move the septic tank.
Correct, yes.
So why, it just looks to me from the grades and the location of the yellow new gradient limit line, that you could, why couldn't you put the pool over to opposite, next to the deck to the left where you're putting the new septic tank, and then you don't have to move the septic tank and you don't have to do that much grading
It was the setbacks that are needed from the house.
from the house?
Yes, so there was certain, the engineer described to me the setbacks that are needed from the house, the septic tank, because the septic tank needs to be X amount of feet away from the pool. And basically from here to here gives us that.
I'm asking something different.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
asking where the existing septic tank is. No, I'm sorry. Leave the existing septic tank where it is and put the pool where the proposed location is for the new septic tank. Is there a reason why you're not putting it there?
I believe it was the setbacks from the house. I would have to ask the engineer on it because he basically did all the setbacks and everything for me. And that's what I do recall of the conversation, but I would have to double check that.
Because there are fewer impacts over there and you don't have to get into the gradient limit, you know, the reserved area beyond the gradient limit line.
You may
You don't
even
have
be
to
able
move the
to
septic tank.
a more normal shape to the pool also, maybe.
Maybe
Even
bigger.
if you were over here, it looks like the
Yeah,
contours
yeah.
are much flatter
That's
if you
what I'm
went to this side, yeah.
So do you, is it, do you know what's happening in the house on that side of the house versus this side of the house? I mean, was that one of the reasons?
It was on this side of the house because they have a bigger yard over on that side, and then basically so the kids can use the pool, then basically can use that
Take it
to
away from the yard.
run and to play and everything. Currently in the back off the deck, there's really not that much space off of there.
Over here?
Over there, yeah. There's really where the patio is and ends is probably like, say, maybe like 2 or 3 feet of lawn before the retaining wall is there and a fence that is currently there, so it's really not that much space back there. So,
And what's on the other side of the clearing and grading limit line today, meaning
it's all, I'm not even gonna call it lawn. It's,
No, it's like rubble.
yeah, it's kind
It's a
of
very
like,
steep,
Right,
rubbly hill.
Yeah.
So my question is, you know, I understand why there's an attempt, and I appreciate the attempt to respect some lines here. But it almost seems like maybe there's a way to, you know, have a better pool that, you know, crosses over these lines and maybe there's some sort of mitigation for that even brings the situation in, because if on the other side of the great clearing grading limit line is not some, you know, amazing forest, then crossing over that line, maybe we're not losing too much, and maybe there's a way to
So if we cross over to the left, then we're gonna be in our side yard setback, so, I mean, to the right side, because at the side yard is 45 feet,
right,
and to the end of the pool, we're basically 45.7, so.
right, and that would trigger the requirement of getting a zoning
Variance, yeah.
variance.
And a zoning variance, and when it went to the other board, they basically said that they want everything to be kept within those clearing and grading lines, the notes that I got back from them. So it's, and to keep within my front yard and side yard setback, so. And my front yard setbacks, like to that front corner, is 78 feet, so
And
it's,
the yard that you're referring to, sort of the kids play in, is that where this temporary stockpile area is? Is that the yard? I'm just trying to understand.
that's gonna be the potential future yard, yeah, where the stockpile area is. So basically, they wanna have an area where the kids can say, use the pool, then be able to run out and say,
Right.
play like some soccer.
Sure,
or
even though it's
kick a ball.
But then
6 to 8 feet,
There's a slope there, but
Right.
you know, it's still something that
Yeah.
can be usable.
totally.
That area there was where all those original damaged trees were, that the majority of them, there's still some in that area, not that many. But there is some trees that are still in that area, but everything can be worked around in, so,
That area is entirely on the other side of the yellow line.
yes.
So that's an ask too.
The temporary stockpile area?
Yeah, well, the future play area you're talking about.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
so.
So,
I mean, in reality, anything and everything is outside of that yellow construction and grading line
right,
area
looks like it, right.
for this house, because it's such a tight, permanent construction and grading line, so.
Well, it's a rubbly thing, but also that is you can see from the contours, it's a very steep slope going down from the house.
It is,
And that was
yes,
one of the issues,
Yeah.
it goes down to the sawmill, and there's the Sawmill Parkway easement, and then
yeah, the
there's,
back then just slopes
yeah,
all
in
the way
terms
down.
of trying to keep the house somewhat invisible from the
Back here.
parkway,
It's
yeah,
back here.
yeah.
I'm talking about over here.
I know, but this, even here,
Uh-huh.
everything's within the yellow line, I agree, yeah.
So I understand not wanting to go to another board. So if the desire is for this and this only, then we should consider that, and I won't pursue this line of questions anymore, but you know, it just feels like
What's that doing back there?
some of these lines are you know, they're somewhat arbitrary, and I wouldn't want sort of a semi-permanent decision. Say semi-permanent, I mean, the pool is expected to have a life of 50 years or more, right? And so I just, if the applicant wants this, then we should consider this, but I'm just coming back to the fact that I wonder if there's a way to make it even better. But if there isn't a desire to address, you know, setback variances and all that, then I get that. I'm not gonna push the applicant in that direction. But it just feels like an odd shape and you know, because of what feels like somewhat arbitrary lines.
Can I borrow your pen for a second? Please. So, I'm just gonna draw something here for
Yeah,
my
yeah.
colleague for a second. So, are you thinking about like something like
Yeah.
that, for example?
Right.
It makes perfect sense to me. I mean,
But she's saying that there's a
But
a setback issue, so you need to get like a variance from the ZBA.
So the
it's
ZBA requires, I think,
45 feet.
45 feet, but then it's the acreage, so they're only.
Coverage?
Yeah.
Coverage issue?
Yeah, coverage issue. So when it went to them and I got their report back, they basically
yes.
were gonna deny it because of my coverage issues and of going over my side yard and front yard set. And when I saw him and said, he's like, oh, you know, I'm gonna deny this. I said, I changed everything. I'm within all my setbacks. He's like, you're fine. I said,
So
it's such an
so
oddly
the
shaped pool,
coverage
but
is
it's,
something that we need more information on.
Okay, but yes.
You know, so I guess,
I mean, the owners are very happy with it the way that it is.
okay, Then if they're happy, then I'm not
I
gonna
kn-
try to change it for them.
I know it's something that's sort of unconforming and not a nice square rectangular or circle or something, but it's something that, you know, fits in, and I think that we can fit all the requirements for a majority of things put together instead of
Yeah.
pushing the project out for a really long time.
It sounds like it's more like a play pool than a lap pool, so.
Yeah, it's more like a play pool. I mean, they have 3 young kids. They just wanna be able to use it,
So
the
my-
kids to play in it,
So I
so.
think we need to hear, I'd like to hear from Dennis, but I really am concerned about the temporary stockpile area and where the Coltech system is being located. It's on the other side of the new grading limit line. And it's just, I think we need to talk about that, but.
Yep.
Maybe Dennis has some observations.
Well, Sabrina, do you have any observations that you wanna share with us? I know you talked about the clear and grading limit lines in your memo.
Yeah, we'll start off with seeker. This is a type 2 action under the State Environmental Quality Review Act.
Sabrina,
You know,
we
the
can't
the
hear you.
setback
It's starting to get garbled
It's
again.
like garbled.
Us.
is garbled. It's not on our end.
Yeah, I think it's this system here,
I can hear Sabrina perfectly.
Yeah, and now you're garbled, Bob.
yeah.
This is what happened.
Well, then
last-
it's you, yeah, it's you guys. I can hear Sabrina fine.
This is gonna be a problem for later.
Can you hear me?
We can
Yeah.
hear you, but it's garbled.
All right, so it's on your end that it's garbled. I can continue if you want me to.
Is there a way, let me ask a question here, technically. Can we watch them on the screen, but also get them on somebody's phone so that we can get the audio right?
Because the audio online is completely fine.
Great. Thank you. See if that works.
I think she just turned the volume down on that.
Testing. Testing.
Sabrina, sneeze again. Let's see if we can hear you.
Yeah, we're gonna get.
Couldn't get to mute fast enough.
That's not garbled too.
Just speak for us one more time.
Testing.
Yeah, we're getting feedback because you guys are right underneath the microphone.
Can you put that back and turn the volume up?
It's still gonna produce feedback because it's weird.
Yeah.
So I could call Felicia's phone. She can put me on speaker.
That'll work.
The phone
Okay.
will work, you
That
think?
should work.
Yeah, okay,
Try.
thank you.
Thank
No
you.
problem.
Thanks for the try.
Oh, not that number.
Check it out.
Okay.
Do you want me to speak through your phone?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Do you wanna hold it?
Okay. So, the application is zoning compliant with regards to setbacks, at least the plan that has been submitted as part of this application.
Sabrina, I'm sorry, could you mute your computer, cause I think we
I
can.
am muted, hang on.
But her speakers are on. She needs to
How's
hear
that?
us.
She might be with herself.
That's good. That's better.
Okay. Well, all right, I'm hearing you through Felicia's phone as well.
Okay.
Okay.
Don't move.
So
It's like
the
a
plan
rabbit
we
ear
have
something.
before us right now is zoning compliant. The coverage calculation worksheet notes that the project is within the coverage limits, but the plans have no indication of that. And so what I would like to ask for is the ability to verify that the coverage is correct and have a plan which depicts that. Depicts the building coverage or the coverages for each of the built aspects of the project and the development coverage so that we can make an appropriate determination that it is compliant with coverage. In reviewing the plans, if it's possible to really capture the entire property as part of the project. Right now, we only have a snapshot of the back portion of the property. But we like to see the entire property framed within the plan set and then the location of neighboring homes, or the closest neighbor, at least an indication as to how far away they are. Again, clearly depict the clearing and grading limit line that was most recently approved on the property, as well as the one that was previously approved, so we can identify what changes are being requested of the clearing and grading limit line. And that's all of my comments.
Okay,
Sounds good to me.
very good.
All right, I'm gonna hang up with Felicia, so Bob can call Felicia.
Okay,
Back to a party line up here for the planning board, huh? This is great.
all right, I guess Bob is good.
I have one question. Am I reading this right, that the existing septic field is quite a ways away from?
Down the hill.
It's down the hill.
It's all the way down the hill.
Yes, and so do we know what kind of terrain we have down there at the bottom of the hill? Is there any wetland setbacks or wetlands?
I don't believe there's any wetland setbacks or anything that's down the,
Okay.
down the hill there, no. Mm-mm.
Alright.
Bob Cohen?
Yes. Can you guys hear him from here?
Not yet. Is he talking?
Bob?
Could you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening, everyone, Chairman, members of the board. Thank you, Sabrina. Thank you, Felicia, for letting me use this phone here. My comments are basically broken down into stormwater comments and general comments. I noticed that looking at the Westchester County GIS, there must have been some improvements to the additional patio area, that's ST1A, about 275 square feet, so that area has to be added to the total areas for the pool, the patio, the hot tub, patio area, and also the equipment area, so make certain when your engineer redoes it. I came up with about 1,625 square feet of total impervious. Your engineer didn't quite have those numbers. You might wanna call me up and we can discuss that.
Okay.
2SB2 basically goes over the parameters of the type of information that your engineer should show in the report. He just showed a couple of quick calculations on this sheet, but that's really not what the SWIP is about. Should include a little bit more information as I outlined. Is he muted on his end? Any of that is the engineer does not show, in my opinion, a true realistic clearing and grading of the line, or limited disturbance that would be required to construct the pool, the wall, all out the material, the hot tub, the patio. Because I don't see how, if it didn't show it, how will equipment come from the driveway to construct the wall, the pool, and install the infiltrators? Obviously, they'll need a construction equipment and construction access.
It's gonna cost feedback.
And all that has to be included in with the limits of disturbance, which is land development activity, which I would think in my mind should be done and shown in more accurate fashion. And that should be shown as the limits of disturbance to include all of that, which would most likely probably need a SWIP for erosion and sedimentation controls. So those were SB1, SB2, SB3, then the general comments, SB1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'll go over those with SWIP. Again, SB1 doesn't demarcate or label the full extent of the temporary construction access, which must be shown for the construction of a pool and every other site improvement. GC2 I went over already. Sabrina kind of mentioned this before, but it's kind of difficult to see and tell what was previously approved, the clearing and grading, what was originally approved on the clearing and grading, and what the proposed clearing and grading is. I would recommend that you demarcate these lines with a heavy line type, a different type of line type, possibly in color, so it's easy for everyone to see, looking at this quite readily, where the original one is, where the previously approved one is, where the proposed one is. There's three to contend with. And I think in looking at the Westchester County, you might have a fourth line because it appears to me that there was more disturbance cleared outside the original clearing and grading. So you might want to retain the services of a surveyor to show what was cleared in real time and real world effort at that site. So that will be the fourth line you have to show. So the planning board can see the full extent of what was disturbed on the site and what necessary mitigation might be available. GC4 is just a standard note. The planning board is inclined to approve the proposed clearing and grading based on the survey. And the new proposed improvements, obviously it's going to need a clearing and grading little line map, and also a declaration which has to be looked at by town council, Ms. Jennifer. And I just had some minor comments on the forms that were filled out, short EAF, the planning board application with numbers of disturbances that match. They should all correspond with one another, that's GC6, GC7. And then GC8 are just standard notes that we need, that should be put on the plan, which will help us rectify the inspection. And by the way, the engineer never contacted Terry to witness the percolation tests and the G test holes which is required as per the appendix C or the stormwater procedures. And something that should be looked into as well. Mr. Chairman, those are my comments for tonight.
Okay. Bob, a question for you. Can you hear us? I hope you can. Can,
Yes, I can.
when you calculate the additional impacts, for construction, the construction access road, et cetera, do we then exceed the coverage figures for this lot?
You mean the limits of disturbance?
No, the actual coverage issues by the time we finish with realistic, where we're gonna have some impacts. I guess these are gonna be temporary because of construction.
Sabrina, did we look at that, Sabrina, because the planning board does restrict the amount of total development coverage based on those factors of 110 and 115. Did you look at that? Sabrina?
Shaking her head, yes.
Looking at, but she's nodding her head. I don't know if it's gonna be over or not, that's a good point, we have to look at that,
Yep.
That is why we need the coverage identified on the plan, so we can verify.
Yep. Okay.
Is the sound any better?
Yeah, a little bit. It's quiet, but it's not garbled.
Okay.
Okay, Dennis, you had some comments.
Yeah, so just general, the overall site plan, so, I don't see anything for the hot tub, so I'm just pointing out, now with respect to the pool, I know that it obviously shows flow into the Coltex, is that dewatering for the pool as well as stormwater, or is that just the stormwater?
That's everything for the pool.
Okay, so that, I was just commenting that, in consideration of, chemical additions for the hot tub, any dewatering or draining, I think should be part of that system and go to that same area, just so it doesn't cascade down the slope, in consideration of it being a conservation subdivision and in consideration of your septic field being downslope. It's two good reasons, I think, just to direct it all to that.
Okay.
And I know we don't regulate the septic, but I think we should have some acknowledgement to Westchester County, just DOH in the notes, that you'll be doing that in accordance with their rules. So I know Mary had mentioned with respect to the trees. So I didn't really have too many comments at this stage, because I need to sort of just understand the scope of what was removed, and then as you'll provide to me what was planted, and then I can make those evaluations in accordance with 121. I will say, from visiting the site, some of those trees that were indicated as damaged do remain. I still see, they're alive. I see the bark damage, so you didn't eliminate everything, but that just seemed to be the area of concentration. That's why I included that report that Kellogg Sessions done, because I thought it might be helpful in just sort of recounting what was completed. You know, all of these lots, because I know you wanted me to say something, Mr. Curley, just about general conditions. So I recall that when I was doing the inspections for Nikich after he did the plantings and would install, you know, what I would call the tree components, the foundation plantings. I don't recall any sod additions. I think everything was sort of seeded, so there was always this scraggly kind of look. It wasn't like lush lawn. Not that I'm commenting on that in terms of anything in terms of preference or getting as much sun or, you know, in this area where the trees that were removed in 2021, it was, you know, probably more resemblance of, you know, I would say attempting to be a, you know, whatever natural flora, whatever was gonna recruit and grow there. But since it was tied into probably what was considered the lawn areas, you know, I could see where the mower would have just kind of continued and done that, because the trees were spaced enough and none of them were the planted landscape varieties, so, you know, those were kind of avoided. So that's generally the condition that you have today, because as indicated from my inspection, a lot of the stumps are still there, so they didn't like go stump grinding, scarifying, and really look to do anything. So it truly was just at this point, I would just call it a tree cutting and left it at that.
Thank you.
That's good.
Okay, questions, comments from board members?
No, I think that we need more information.
Yep, there's some more work that has to be done here.
Yeah, there are some photographs here that as I recall, showed the tree damage before the trees were taken out. It looks like some construction equipment sort of had run into the trees because of where the bark damage is. I mean, I don't know how that happened, but.
Yeah, I don't know, that was prior to me,
Understood.
yeah.
And I don't know, but for the amount of damage looks like it was done to these trees, it didn't look to me like the tree was gonna die from it. It looked to me like the tree could survive something like that, and if not, maybe it could survive with some treatment at the area where the damage is done and the tree would survive. I'm a little bit skeptical, unless you tell me otherwise, obviously, I'm a little bit skeptical that maybe this was, instead of a necessary takedown, a preferred takedown, may not be to get more lawn area, but it may be to get more sunlight into the house. You just sort of don't know. There are a lot of reasons to take a tree down. Some people just don't like trees. That's just, I'm not saying these people don't, but people have reasons to take trees down, and I just wonder if maybe this removal wasn't necessary. With regard to the ground area of the property in the grading and clearing limit line area, it looks to me like, as I think Dennis is suggesting, that there has been some activity in there to keep any woody plants growing in there, sort of keep it clear from the natural forest coming back. Now, if it's a pine forest, as I think, if it's a pine forest, because of the acid in the pine, I think that it maybe retards growth of understory and maybe supplements its own regrowth. But so maybe that's a reason why you don't see much of that. But if you look at the photographs, there's no evidence of any deadfall that you normally have in an untreated in a natural forest. There's no evidence of any of that. It just looks like it's being maintained.
The area around the house, yeah, it's being maintained, so because they're using the yard to play in it and active as it is, so.
I'm sorry, so you're saying that, so you're saying they're using the grading and clearing, the area beyond the grading and clearing limit line as a yard?
They're using a little bit to that, say, right-hand side,
Right,
like where
where you wanna put the
stockpile.
yeah.
Yeah, the kids like have like balls and stuff and play out there.
Okay, I'm just trying to understand what's going on there.
Yeah, they're trying to use it as like a bigger place to play because behind the house, there really isn't that much area. And they have like, toys and different things over there that they kick around and use, cause it's sort of a,
Sure,
it's nowhere near level, but it's something for them to
right.
go out there and run around in.
So I have a question of what relevance is the previous grading and clearing limit line to this discussion? Does it have any relevance at all? I mean, the yellow one is the one which is in effect, unless I'm mistaken. The yellow line on the drawing?
I agree, it's just
So it
kind of an
shouldn't-
academic activity, right?
It shouldn't even be on the drawing. I mean, it's gone, it's disappeared. It may be historical, but it has no effect. So I think that ought to come off the drawing
Okay,
because it just makes and the yellow line ought to be the black line instead,
Okay.
because it just introduces confusion.
okay,
In the conversation and in the public's review of this and in the record of this, it's just not helpful. And if that's the case, if we can do that, then I think you'd have a better graphic image of the impacts that are being asked of us to mitigate somehow. And be able to sort of understand all that better.
okay.
Okay, so it seems to me that there's a good deal of work that has to be done here.
Yeah, from the engineer work, plus there needs to be the test pits done from
Yeah.
the letter that I got yesterday for the parking of it, and if we do park correctly or not, and adding the more Coltech
Right.
rechargers
Right.
and everything, so we can get all of that lined up and taken care of and have the engineer change the
Yeah.
drawings accordingly to what's being asked.
Thank you.
And then with the, now you guys want to show on the plan the construction entrance, and all of that goes with the construction entrance would be part of the coverage limits. And with that, we would reach that, we would need that SWIP completed, so. So I spoke to the engineer about that yesterday, so he was gonna do that as his next steps as well, to add that construction entrance from the driveway and show the coverage area that is being disturbed and stuff with the construction entrance, and do the SWIP with it as well.
Where will the access drive go? Will it go behind the house, down the drive, and then behind the house, or will it come across the front
It
yard?
has to come across the front,
Okay, I would think so.
yeah, it has to come across the front tight and in.
Yeah.
So
See, if the pool was here, you could just come right here.
it would be nice to come off of Cynthia Court, but there's a fence and everything.
Yeah.
That is there. There is an opening from the neighbor's house that I think was used as the old construction entrance, but I don't know if that's accessible from the neighbor's house.
Well,
That's
an issue
whole
for the
nother
neighbor.
conversation.
Yeah, it's a whole other conversation. It's probably better that they stick to their driveway and their front lawn.
Right.
And that's why we have never done more work on the front lawn, because that's where we figured everything
Right.
was gonna come through with, so.
Well, one last thought, and that, not to berate, but again, a pool in this area, your construction access road is coming directly off the driveway. You save all this area for your yard,
That's
for
great.
kids. You avoid changing the septic tank. Just a thought. It might work better, you might get a more regular sized pool.
You might actually get an approval from the board.
I can ask the engineer if it crosses all the setback rules and regulations, because then we have the other side yard setback.
Right, right, yeah, we don't know what that is exactly, so.
Yeah, I don't know what that is, because that's a whole other like,
But there seems to be a fair amount of space here, off the deck. And perhaps even if you reduce the size of the deck a little bit to fit the pool in, you may have yourself a larger pool.
to put back there.
Yeah,
Incorporate the pool into a larger deck.
yeah.
Yeah, I can have him do the calculations for me and see, and then
Is that a patio or a deck? That's a patio.
it's like a
Patio.
unilock patio.
Right.
That's all that it is, so.
Well, it's right where the septic tank would be if it were moved.
Right.
Would be a real hassle for somebody to get in there. I mean, they have to drive all the way across the back of the building. Moving it where it is helpful because it's getting it closer to what I think is a driveway or a garage.
Driveway's over here.
Where?
The driveway's all the way to the left.
all the way over here.
Yeah, right.
So if you came straight down here, the access is really easy.
Yeah, yeah, cause it's
Construction.
been moved,
Yeah,
I mean,
if
for
you-
the
if you
septic
move, yeah,
tank, and
right.
I think that's a plus. Cause I think it's too close to the pool and the house, and I'm sure that's, well, to the pool, and that's probably why it's being moved. But it's gonna help, because you can park the truck and then you have enough hose to get over there
Mhm.
to,
Well,
you know,
the
suck it dry.
The existing septic tank is being serviced fine, right? Is there a problem with it?
No.
Yeah, so,
No issues with it.
That would stay, I would think,
Yeah.
if you looked at the
If
old,
we fit within all
flip it on
our-
the other side.
Flipped it on the other
Yeah.
side. I can ask him that.
great,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay, thank you guys so much.
Okay, thanks. So, we'll wait to, hear from you before we schedule, the next informal.
Yeah, so basically I just have to discuss with the engineer the timing, talk to the owners about it, if they do wanna flip it or not. And
Yep.
then basically I would come back to you and let you know when we're ready
And make another resubmission.
and make another resubmission. Okay.
Okay,
perfect. Thank you,
great,
guys.
thank you. Okay, our next item this evening is the referral from the town board, this is a local law referral, for North Greeley Zero legislation, to amend chapter 60 of the code of the town of Newcastle to establish a new special use permit for mixed-use residential buildings that meet certain green building standards at 50 North Greeley Avenue, and we last heard this on January 24th, excuse me. So I think specifically, as I understand it, from Tom's report of the meeting that Eldad and Tom attended, one of the specific tasks given to us from the town board was to speak to the issue of height. And they would like very much to hear from us on that specific issue. Not sure they wanna hear from us on other issues, but that was specifically an assignment that was given to us. So in connection with the height issue, staff has prepared a study that was in our packets that gave us information about the proposed building, but perhaps you two should really talk about the height, because you were at that meeting, and give us your thoughts and, you know, next to do in terms of the height issues.
Sure, so first of all, Tom and I did have the opportunity, I'll speak for myself, I appreciated that opportunity to be part of that meeting. It was a good meeting and I think substantive, which is great. I appreciate the seriousness with which you know, the town board representatives take this matter, and I thought it was like I said, a very helpful meeting to advance this important question that's before us. I apologize that I wasn't able to be at our most recent planning board meeting. I was out of the country away. But I also circling back to being appreciative, very appreciative of this memo from Sabrina and Tom DePaul talking about heights in the area. I do have a request. I hope it's doable. I would love to know, cause I drove and walked the North Greeley a couple weeks ago just to kind of see the site again, even though I've been there many times, but just to see it with this eye, with this question. And I would love to know the height as it is, you know, at grade and relative to the 50 North Greeley site of the closest townhomes at 149 King. I think the height of those buildings, I never realized sort of how big they are, how large they loom when you're walking on North Greeley. And cause the grade change there is so significant, and there, you know, is the parking lot. And the existing buildings that are on the east side of North Greeley are relatively low. And so those buildings have a significant height, like I say, also relative to the significant grade change between their grade and the 50 North Greeley grade. So to me, it would be extremely helpful to understand, cause to me, that really frames the context of, or helps to further frame the context of what's happening in this, 50 North Greeley is essentially a valley, right? Because you have the train tracks and going up from there, it seems like in both directions, east and west, there seems to be some height around it, both from a topographical and building stock perspective. And so to me, that would be helpful to further understand the context here. Is that possible?
No one knows.
We can try, we can try and obtain the height. I don't wanna make promises, it really depends on the information that we can find within the files. And, the topography and try and figure it out for you, we're happy to do that.
It's Carrie. We're just gonna try to disconnect for a moment and reconnect and see if that cleans up the garble.
Okay,
You won't be lost, you'll still be hosted.
okay.
But just to the board, does that make sense? What I'm getting
Yeah,
at?
I think that's an interesting perspective, and I think it does make some sense, because especially this time of year, where the foliage is gone, it does help to give some context, I think.
Recording in progress.
We're back.
Feel that?
Okay, speak again?
I said we're back.
Not really.
Very strange.
Yeah.
Kind of
The
back.
marble is also somewhat back.
Yeah.
That means here all the time, is this just?
I don't know, but even Dennis was garbled when he was speaking last on the last application. So
The sound system's tired.
Yeah.
So,
Bildad, I have a comment on your comments here. If you're referring to, there's apartment houses that are stuck in the hill.
Condos.
Yeah, condos, and I think they're 3 stories. And with the steep slope and everything, everybody gets a view going forward, and sunlight comes in and everything like that. Whereas now we're talking about a building that's on the flat, and some of the houses that are on the east side, well, they're not gonna see as much. Hopefully, everybody likes the architecture of what's gonna be there. So the buildings up the hill have a different scenario, in my mind at least, as to what you see and what you don't see.
right, I think in some sense we were saying the same thing, but maybe viewing it in a different way. 100%, King Street from the intersection of King and Greeley, obviously, has a significant incline. And so the homes at the 149 King that overlook that valley, I don't know, I've never been invited to anyone's home over there, but I assume that some of them have nice views. But no views are guaranteed, certainly not in a downtown setting, but anywhere really. But so we're saying the same thing, from the window, there's likely a view of something. I don't know if it's a nice view, it's a train station, if it's a Rite Aid parking lot.
Well, you can add the school buses too.
Right, exact school bus and the World Cup gym across there, but outside of that building, looking up at them, when I was walking, I was struck because I hadn't really thought of that, but they're very significant. They really do loom large and sort of set a context. And so the whole point of this is to talk about what is sort of appropriate, or what is a height that we're willing to consider for this site. And one of the questions in the memo is, are we setting some sort of precedent? And I think it's foolish not to assume that some might view it as a precedent. So we need to think about that in this context also. But what I'm trying to get at least to some extent, is that there are precedents already here for the built form being tall.
So I would like to, I understand the context you're talking about, and everything you're saying makes perfect sense in that context. I think that the context that really applies here is the environment of the North Greeley corridor itself. I think that is what we ought to be thinking about. And the relationship of buildings which are on the west side of the street, the ones you're talking about that actually go up the hill, they're 100 feet back from, because 110 feet back from the lot line, which is the lot line along North Greeley on that side. And what I think we're talking about is the streetscape scale of North Greeley, and not necessarily the district scale. And there's a principle. There's a principle I'm sure that many of us are aware of, which is that first of all, the street is a public environment, and sometimes it's seen as the room that we gather in, the public, and we use to go shopping, we use to meet each other, do all those things. And that should be seen historically, in many cases, is seen as a design in and of itself. And again, in different contexts, right? It's a classic example are the Haussmann boulevards in Paris. I mean, the design of those things was so particular with respect, not to the height, not just the height, but the cornice line, right? The cornice line needed to be continuous. And that was essentially the cornice like you'd see in a room, and the sky was the ceiling of the room. And that's obviously an extreme example, but there are so many examples that exist, and it's actually, a lot of the things that I'm concerned about actually go to this particular question, which is a challenge, which is how do we make a town street which has all of the attributes that we admire when we go to other town streets in other towns and say, wow, this is great. And those attributes are not like, we're not inventing them here. They are actually part of history. If you go, Edmund Bacon, Peter Calthorpe, Andras Duaney, there are scholars and practicing architects who have done a terrific job of actually identifying those characteristics and putting them into a set of standards that people use, right? And the part of that is, and essential to that, is the height of the street wall. And the taller it is, the more you feel like you're in an urban environment typically. The narrower and taller it is, and the lower it is, the more you feel like you're in a like a townscape or a village-scape. And the more discontinuous it is, the more you feel like you're in a suburban environment. And so what environment are we looking for? I think we ought to be, what is the corridor, what are the attributes of the corridor that we are looking for here, which represent what we've been talking about, was talked about in the comprehensive plan. What was talked about, and dare I say it, but what was talked about in the rezoning effort, which is the form-based code, and there are things that people don't like about that, but I challenge anybody, I haven't heard anybody saying, well, we don't like the idea of a nice street. I think the whole thing crashed on a question of density rather than the other attributes. So I think that there are many other things that go into this that I think maybe we could be talking about tonight. But I think the height relative to a hamlet scale of the street corridor itself is what the way in which I think we ought to be measuring it in. Those are my thoughts on that. And you and I think we talked and we had this, forgive me if I'm wrong about that, but
we definitely talked.
Yeah.
So far, you're not wrong.
I should stop there. There's this tool that I think we talked about it in our meeting last time, but there's this tool that architects would use all the time. It's called, you build a model of the thing. And you have a physical model that actually is a three-dimensional representation of a three-dimensional thing. And the drawing tools we have these days, SketchUp, so on and so forth, they are terrific in terms of a two-dimensional representation of a three-dimensional thing, but it doesn't get you there. You really can't understand, I don't think, I can't really understand completely what the effects of the three-dimensional object are, especially within the context of, for instance, North Greeley. And so our recommendation was, my recommendation is.
Yeah, we talked about it and I was very supportive.
Yeah, okay, so our recommendation was, we need a model. And we need a model at a scale that you can actually appreciate the building's mass, the building height, in the context of the street itself. So you need not just a model of the building, but you need a model of the street.
Mhm.
And these are things that, oh, thank you, Sabrina. Here's an example of that kind of model. Now, this is,
You're welcome.
thank you.
Whoa.
So I asked, Sabrina offered to put this up tonight, and I think it's great. And this is just one I picked off, the internet, and it doesn't have to be wood, it could all be all white. It can be, whatever materials seem to be, the most, I think, the quickest way to get this answer. But you can see there's a building proposed in a existing context. And the model that I think ought to be done is that white, for example, that white building should be a removable piece so that you can put another alternative in. If there are attributes of that particular, the proposal that maybe don't look right, you can do another one and put it in and use it as a working tool. And we used to do that all the time, in the practices that I used to have. So the proposal I have, Sabrina, do you have the plan? Is to build a model that looks something like this. The area would be something like this. The yellow is the site. And that would be the model that would be built of the proposal. And the rest of it would be built as what you see there, North Greeley, the area. No, I want the whole thing, Sabrina, don't zoom in. All those buildings you see, they would be the background of the model. Those would be model pieces that would be built. So you'd essentially have a model of North Greeley and all the buildings on it, and then you'd have a removable piece that would go back and forth. And the reason I think that in this particular case, it's important is that look at the amount of frontage that project is. It's like 400 something feet. It is essentially it's more than 50% of the western frontage of the street. And whatever happens there is going to absolutely set the future of that street. And is going to not just the physical future of it and the feeling of it, but it's also, I think, going to begin to drive some of the development consequences of it. And I think that this kind of a model is warranted for the people of the town who we represent to have an opportunity to see what they can't see in a set of drawings, what they can't know in a set of drawings. And I have trouble knowing in a set of drawings in this context. I mean, I can walk around and visualize it, I'm pretty good at that, but still, I don't feel confident about that. I don't feel confident enough to say, this is good or this is bad. All I know is that there's a red flag that really we ought to be sort of looking at this more carefully.
Well, if it's a expressway to avoid the right-hand turn situation, I'm serious, that's serious, that's a great example.
Yeah, it is actually.
Because that's exactly what happens when we work with two-dimensional paper, we all do, I mean, the applicants as well. And, it could be that this would be very, very helpful and enable us to work for perhaps even an expeditious solution for the applicant as well.
Oh, I think so.
To cut through it and just let's sit down and do here and see what really works in terms of the scale, et cetera. I can't agree with you more because when you look at the lines, it really becomes, it almost defines North Greeley because of the frontage.
It will, for sure.
Absolutely.
I think we can all agree on that.
Absolutely, yeah.
Undoubtedly.
Yep. So I think it's I support the notion. I don't know where we go with that, and did you ask the town board when you were together or the applicant at that meeting?
No, because they had just given us the assignment at that meeting.
Okay.
And then Eldon and I have been talking about, well, what would it entail? And now we're bringing it to this board for some notion about what, maybe we could do or should do. It seems to me that we aren't the people to assign this task to the applicant because we really have no authority in this process other than advisory to the town board. So I think our advice to the town board ought to be that they ought to require this as submission materials in order for the town board to come up with a zoning legislation, at a minimum, zoning legislation that actually identifies what the height should be. And so that would mean suspending the zoning legislation, draft zoning legislation work for the time it takes to get this model built and everybody look at it, and it may not, we may need another model. We may need another insert in there after we look at this one. One of the things that we talked about is, and we've been asking the town board this and Sabrina and everybody this, and I don't, maybe we got a definitive answer, but I don't remember it, and forgive me if we did and I don't remember it. But we've been asked the question, we've got a zoning legislation that's being it's being looked at and being proposed and being worked on by everybody, and we have a design. And in the beginning, our concern was that the zoning legislation was so written to represent the design that we asked the question, well, what's the process here? Is the design going to be advanced at the same time that the zoning legislation is, so that we can really understand the two together? Because if they need to be understood together, I think. But what seems to be happening is that the design is being put over here, and the zoning legislation is being advanced. And I think that's fine if the zoning legislation strips out everything with that is particular to this particular design, so that if this design has to change, you don't have to go back and change the zoning legislation. Or if for some reason the applicant decides that, well, now's not the time, I'll do something else, you don't have zoning legislation in place, which is then an impediment to, what you might be able to do.
Yeah, it felt, I'm sorry, but it felt like the zoning legislation was sort of backed into as a result of this specific design, and we didn't think that made a lot of sense for a whole host of reasons, for the site, for the town, for the way to think through what zoning is. And we've discussed that at this board and at our working group as well.
Yeah, and so I think that if we don't do it, if it doesn't get done soon, I don't know if it's gonna get done at all. We need to bring these two things together, I think. Either cut one off and make it its own thing, which is stripped from the particulars of the design, take the zoning and do that. Or it'd be better if we just brought everything together and put it on the table and looked at it, and then decided, well, what is best for the town.
I still think even in that scenario, the zoning needs to stand on its own.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
That's a very good point. Yes.
Because
You're
we
right.
talked about this, the property could change hands or any number of things can happen. Technology changes, this could sit vacant for another 4 years and the technology changes and the zoning has to stand on its own. It has to speak to what we want here on the site conceptually, not from a design,
point of view,
yeah,
right.
design standpoint.
Yeah, so in that light, I think that I also think it's unfortunate because the design seems to be taking up, I don't know how to say this without impugning things or assuming things that aren't true, but it just seems to be put aside for now. And if you look at the architectural renderings of this project, they are so dramatically, the style of the building is so dramatically different from what the Architectural Board of Review typically sees in their response to new construction and renovations in town. That, I mean, I know because I've been before them myself with a building addition, a house addition. I think I understand where their mindset is and what they believe their mission to be and their charge to be. And I just wonder if they might have some significant suggestions about this thing. And I tend to think that, let's just, it would be better if we got all of the boards, maybe there are just three, the town board, planning board, ARB, I don't know. We get everybody who actually needs to look at this thing and will weigh in on this thing together now, before it goes much further. Because if I'm the developer, I don't mean to speak for the developer, but I work for them and I understand, if I'm that person, I don't want to be told 6 months down the line that, oh my goodness, now we have a problem. I think that these conversations should have happened, I mean, the earliest date on the drawings that I got is like October of last year, which is like 5 months ago. It seems to me that this conversation ought to have happened back then. And it seems that the cover sheet, September?
Yeah, September 20th.
I was looking at the existing conditions plan, September 2022.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't wanna say it's too late to do this, cause I really think we need to do it. But I do think that the town board ought to, gather everybody together, have a kumbaya moment and say, okay, let's work together with the developer, with the property owner, and let's just make this right, and let's just do it now. And that's the reason why I think I would like the town board to go to the developer now and say, build the model. Let's get it out there, and let's get the process started.
On the topic of the model, just going back to sort of the height and the idea of the model, Tom and I did talk about this on a couple occasions since that meeting, and one, I very much welcome a model. I in my professional life, I've worked on several projects that architects like Tom have produced models that have been incredibly helpful, and we have used it as a roadshow. You go, you just bring it to the meeting, put it on the table, and it's been incredibly helpful. And yes, you can just pull out, the subject site and replace it with any number of alternative scenarios. Incredibly helpful. The only thing I would say about I welcome a model, absolutely. The only thing I would say is I don't wanna dictate what the applicant should do. I think I would wanna take it one step back and say, why are we asking for a model? Because of the significance of the site, the significance of the proposal, not just on this site, but beyond for this corridor and our town. It is very important that all the decision makers and the stakeholders and the community have a true sense of what's being proposed, because the frontage is significant, the height is a change. And so I think there's a desire to have an understanding of what is actually being proposed, because again, 2D is one thing, but there are ways to convey that. A model is one of them, but there are other technologies. There's an augmented reality technology that can be used. I just don't wanna limit the developer, the applicant here. What I wanna say to the town board and the applicant is I think it would benefit them to have a better way of showing all the relevant stakeholders what is actually being proposed here and what that may feel like. A model is one fantastic way to do that. The other thing I'll say about the model is the only place where Tom and I may disagree on the model is to what extent the context shown would be beneficial. Completely understand sort of the boulevard question or the streetscape. Streetscape matters. Street walls matter. The pedestrian experience matters very much so. But there is a larger context beyond that that to me I think matters, and that also takes into account the conifer site, which I know we have a height on, but I do think the 149 King Street homes, the ones that sort of loom over this valley, I think they matter. But to Tom's point, we're not telling the applicant to do anything. It's more us telling the town board that it would be helpful to have a better representation of the height here within a certain context, and I guess we can disagree on what that context is.
Well, I think it would be broader than, I know we've been charged with this narrow issue of height, but from my perspective, one of the frustrating things about this entire process has been the stop go situation. And we haven't really been able to get into the site issues. And, if the legislation is going to be drawn up so it's going to be that specific, then site issues really matter a lot. A lot. And maybe,
everything.
But maybe by the time we go through it all, then we also decide, pull some of this stuff out of the zoning because it informs us and tells us we don't need it, because that really, we leave it to the applicant, the next applicant, whatever it might be, for the individual site issues. And that's been the frustrating thing for me in trying to lead conversations and trying to respond and put together bullets and notes is like, we haven't started it, and Tom and I have talked about, well, maybe we should just jump in and just say, look, we're gonna get a referral from the town board, maybe we'll just do a preliminary referral note to the town board and say, look, it's eventually gonna come to us, but we think it's important that we get ahead of this and start talking about the site now and the site review now and the kinds of things that we would normally look at in a site review. We're not going to make the decision, the town board would, but these are the things that we think that the town board should look at and make sure that their consultants and staff and the folks that they've retained, you know, for parking studies, et cetera, make sure that these issues are covered. It gets to be very frustrating because, you know, you start writing stuff and I feel like I'm stepping on other people's toes and I don't want to do that. You start to feel like you're an obstructionist. I don't want to be an obstructionist. That's not the deal. But it's very, very frustrating. And I've talked with Jennifer about this, and my understanding was that Sabrina's actually asked the applicant to try to do this, to put it all together at one time, and for whatever reason, they just pursue the legislation at this point, unilaterally, without really looking at the site issues.
So it's and I'm obviously I'm taking a flyer at this, but unless I'm mistaken, I understand that any applicant has the right to appear before any board. I mean, they make the submission, have the right documents, anybody has a right to make an application to this board, as far as I understand it, for a development proposal. And I guess any applicant has the right to go before the town board to suggest new zoning legislation. But I don't think there is any, and it's our obligation to hear an applicant. I don't know whether there's an obligation for the town board to hear a zoning, a rezoning proposal from an applicant. Maybe there is. But the zoning board, the planning board, the town board, it seems to me, has the prerogative to say, not now, not yet. We need more information. And that's what I don't, and I'd like to encourage the town board to say, not now, not yet. The applicant maybe wants to go through the process that we're going through now. And the town board maybe has talked to him about it, maybe hasn't, but that's where we are. And I'm not sure that that's the best way to approach this thing. Just because the applicant says, well, I wanna do it this way, there's no obligation for this town to do it that way. This town is actually, I know we're gonna get benefits for it, but this town is increasing the development capacity of that site by like twice. I mean, it's 2 stories now, the proposal is for 4 stories. That's a tremendous gift, I think, a big ask. And I think that's, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that, I think it's great. But at the same time, I think that the people of the town have a position, a legitimate position in giving that, in shaping it in a way which is good for them as well. And to me, the right way to come to that conclusion is, as I've said, which is just bring everything together and address, what it is. And we finally got the drawings last week, and for the first time I was able to sit down after, I wouldn't be making, if I'd have got the drawings 4 months ago, I'd be making the same speech then. I just didn't get the drawings until like last week. But I've been through the drawings, and I think there are significant problems with this site plan. Significant problems with the design, from the perspective of creating the kind of streetscape, the kind of North Greeley that people are going to want to have, as opposed to the kind that they're not going to want to have. And I'm putting that out there because I think that it's a serious matter, and I think we ought to be addressing it now, because if I'm right, it's going to get it right, it's gonna require some redesign. And if it's going to require redesign, we ought to be doing it now. Or they ought to be doing it now.
Well, I don't have the architectural background and design background that you have, nor the zoning background that LDAT has. But I have experience in looking at site plans, and in the narrow areas that I looked at, that I can look at, it seems to me that there are a number of issues and questions. And I can't recall very often where certainly not on a major application, where the first swing in from an applicant was what the town approved. In fact, it's not even close. So and I think it is fair to say that by the time we finished, or by the time the ZBA finished, if they had the lead on an application, or the town board, I think it is fair to say that the application was a better product at the end of the process, which involved public hearings as well as staff and professionals. It's just a better product. So I hope that the town board and the applicant appreciate that and frankly anticipate that. I think it would all, based on my review, it would be almost ludicrous for this to be the, in my opinion, the approved plan. From the standpoint, not architects, you have, your perspective on that, which I respect. But just from, the narrow issues that I looked at and have talked to people about, there's some opportunities here, there's some issues here, there's some questions here, and those need to be resolved, I think.
So, what do we do?
Well, I guess what we could do is just, excuse me, send a note to the town board on a very generic level and say, look, we really think it would be advantageous for all parties to see a model with alternatives on the model. And also to get ARB involved sooner than later, et cetera. I personally assigned the task to what's the right height. I think we don't have the information to come up with the answer. I don't know if it's 55 feet, I don't know if it's 45 feet, I don't know if it's 50 feet, I don't know. But I know I tried to raise issues for the town board, not for us, we're not gonna make the call, the town board will make the call. But I was just trying to, with my memo, to throw out areas and issues that hopefully someone will look at as this process goes through. And Tom, I incorporated your comments, I just copied them, so they're verbatim. So, including the TBDs.
Yeah, well, that was your mistake.
Yes, I was supposed to put something in, yeah, exactly, and they get yelled at. So, I didn't do that. So anyway, I mean, those are the kinds of issues, and again, you sit there and say, well, gee, you're just talking about, a lot of the stuff you're talking about is just building code. Yeah, it's building code, but it kind of informs some of the answers about what might be the right height. And I tried to put even questions in here about, well, what might be a solution, even keeping the same height. I've heard about the stuff about the wires in front and this kind of stuff. Tom has talked to us about a couple of issues last time around. He mentioned a couple when he was running through his comments. So I basically, tried to take notes and put some of those in there. And I don't have the answers, but the answers have to be at some point resolved, it seems to me.
I agree. Can't do it without resolution.
So is there, I think we're fairly on the same page when it comes to the fact that there's one work to be done here. And I guess the question is, I think the bullet points here are all fair questions that are worthy of discussion. And the other issues that we've raised, I think, are valid. And so what is being asked of us with regard, at the working group discussion, it was, I think, ultimately decided, we heard from the town board that they want to have control over final approval, which I'm happy with. If they want that they can have it, but with input from us when it comes to site plan review and all that, which is also, I think, makes a lot of sense. They were very clear that they don't want to move forward without our significant input, that they would not move forward. Correct me if I'm wrong, Tom. That was what we heard. And so separately, but also in parallel, there was a lengthy discussion about the zoning language itself. And there were some comments made from all around the table about how to improve the zoning language. And so I think on the zoning side of things, that advanced more than site plan considerations, significantly more. And so, you know, and you know, some of the larger questions were sort of left as blanks. You know, is what will on the zoning side of things, what will the zoning say for what is the height limit, right? I mean, it's a number that you can fill in and change at any point. And some of the other standards when it comes to, I think, environmental conditions also can be updated or changed, I think, as we continue the discussion on site plan issues. And so what is being asked of us, what is the next step? How do we advance this? You know, with knowing that we haven't resolved anything, but we need to.
Well, in my opinion, I think the notion would be to send a memo to the town board and say, we've taken this under advisement, we're looking at it, but we've come back and said, really for us to do what we think is the right job for you in terms of making the recommendation for you, town board, we would like to see a model, and we would like to make certain that certain issues and questions are resolved and or looked at. And we might want to suggest respectfully that they take a timeout on the zoning legislation until we catch up with the site issues with an eye toward perhaps making changes to, I'm talking about substantive changes to the zoning, not the fluff in the beginning. That's all fine as far as I'm concerned. But at this point, you know, the substance where we say whatever number it is that we say, whatever ratio that we're talking about that's in the zoning, we look at that and make sure that we have the right numbers in there and make sure it's something that we have to have in the zoning, or whether or not it would be better not to have it in there.
Right.
So I think they really need to do a timeout on the legislation and let this site stuff catch up. Right. And that includes a model that will help us catch up, but that's my gut on it. And I'll be darned, I mean, you guys can talk about, Tom has got a perspective in terms of, you know, what I call a subjective feel in terms of what the height should be. I don't have that ability, but I can talk about objective things and issues that I know of and heard about and can envision in terms of potential problems or issues or questions. And you know, with the guidance that we've had so far to date from staff, from Tom DePaul in particular, you know, let's figure out those. And again, I think Tom's suggestion that ARB should be pulled in earlier than later makes good sense. It makes great sense for this applicant. I mean, I personally think the applicant, frankly, should be much further along in terms of what that solution is going to be. And I feel badly for the applicant.
Me too.
That they have been delayed and we really haven't made enough progress. And what I fear is, you know, we just get into this situation where they just say, I want this and that's it, and I have a timetable and this is what you're gonna get, or you know, or you know, we're gonna sue, or we're gonna have problems, you know, and that's not the way, that's never a good solution.
The other thing that's somewhat unique is that there appears to be the potential for some safety problems with the way everything is set up. It's a long building. There's only one entrance into the parking. That's a problem potentially, because if one car gets, you know, on fire from lithium or whatever, then how are the other cars gonna get out? There's a problem with how far up, height-wise, can our fire department control a problem? I mean, the answer the applicant would give would say, well, nothing's gonna burn there, because the wood is too well, lithium is there. That's an issue you have, and a lot of places in New York City have fires, and they had a great fire outside of the city where I think it was just a scooter that started it.
They just had a fire just a couple days ago in the Bronx that was started by a lithium ion battery.
Okay, maybe that was it, the Bronx.
It's a very real concern.
Yeah, and so that's safety issue, and so has all this gone in? I mean, it's really, there's some nice things about where the walking is gonna be and everything, except for the fact that can you get an emergency vehicle in on the south side of the building, and the way it's set up, the answer is no. You have to go, but you could go, I guess, to the neighboring property and do it. But there's all these things that to me are somewhat unusual to a building construction.
There is as I understand it, there is a real concern about the telephone poles and the wires on that street frontage.
Well, that's.
And it may be that in order to fight a fire of that size, maybe those wires have to be put underground. And who's gonna pay for that? That's a big number.
Oh, yeah, and the back of the building is only 11 feet to the property line. Well, you can get a small truck, I guess, around there. I don't think you can get a garbage truck there. That's another issue. But it's 11 feet, and they were gonna plant all sorts of veggies along there, which is nice. It's aesthetically an improvement, but then that narrows the ability of a vehicle to go through there, down to about 6 feet. And
So there, as I understand it, if you look at the Conifer project, as I understand it, the Conifer project is 6 inches from the railroad. And the way they solve that problem is they have what's called a deluge system on that face of the building, which is essentially the internal sprinkling system penetrates to the outside so that at the windows, so that could all be washed and watered. So I am confident that for many of these things, there's a technical solution that the fire department is gonna decide anyway. It's not for us to decide. But some of these things probably ought to be addressed sooner rather than later because they may affect the site planning of the project.
Exactly.
And to the safety, you and I are gonna meet, I assume, what was it?
Friday.
Yeah, on Friday?
Yeah.
What was it, 2 o'clock in the afternoon?
Right.
Yeah, and see if we can discuss it with Tom and some others.
Well, listen into a discussion, yeah.
Oh, okay.
First, I just wanna go back real quick to whether the height is a subjective thing or not. It's actually not, because there's real precedent in these things. I mean,
Okay.
and there are ways to demonstrate that precedent by, going to books and going to, go walk down the street in Katona, or go walk down the street, or go to Croton Harmon, walk down, their streets, which are really quite nice, and get a feeling for what feels like a hamlet and what feels like, go walk in White Plains, what feels like a town, what feels like a city, and then to inform the decision about that. My experience is that 4 stories at the street wall, especially if we're talking about a 4-story, which is 52 feet in average, but 55 feet at the peak, is probably something that we ought to really look at as whether it's appropriate or not to get what we're looking for. Now, my concern about the town board having the final say, and I still think that we ought to have it, and I know we've lost that argument, so, but my concern, and I don't mean to start the argument again, I wanna find a way to work with that conclusion. My concern is that if we are successful in working with the applicant, going through what we think our concerns are, it's going to be maybe a little bit different than, the conclusions are gonna be maybe a little bit different than they are in us working with our own applicants, because this applicant doesn't necessarily have to take our recommendations. He could go to the next higher authority and say, I really don't wanna do that.
There's inherently a conflict there, between us giving recommendations and a different board having a vote. And I agree with you. I don't know that we lost that argument so much as didn't put up a fight.
Didn't win.
Well, but it's if that's a conversation that you wanna have, then we can revive that discussion. If for nothing else, the point you're making now is a very valid one, right? They come before us and we say, do this, do that, do this, do that, and they say, well, I'll do 2 of the 4 things because I think I can get approval on the other 2 elsewhere.
Right.
Maybe.
So I was wondering if there's a way to like cut the baby in half or not cut the baby in half.
No.
Not cut the baby in half.
Don't do that.
I don't know why I said
Cut
that.
the cake in half.
Thank you. There's a way to work together on this. And I don't, I mean, if one way to do it would be for the town board to say no, and they've said this, they say this and they've said it, and they'll say it again, I imagine, because this is their prerogative. This project is too important to leave to the planning board. We have to have, the town board needs to have the authority. Now, we're gonna bring in the planning board in order to advise us on all of this. I wonder if there's a way for the applicant to be obligated to work with, to actually really work with us. And for the town board to just stay silent on this issue until the results of real working sessions with the applicant yield a memo of recommendations of what should happen to the town board. And I don't know, in the referral process, I mean, we can ask the applicant to show up, I guess he will, in the normal referral process, or whether we're gonna be sitting here, you know, talking to the walls and talking to each other and you know, talking to the ether. Or whether we're gonna be in real conversations with the applicant where we're really working together. And I'm looking for an authority or a venue or, you know, whatever it is that allows that to happen.
Mhm.
And I don't know what that is.
Yeah,
but
not unlike what eventually happened at Chapel Rock Crossing.
that worked pretty well.
Yeah.
That worked very well, actually.
What did that look like?
We had certain responsibilities. Town board had overall responsibilities, but we had certain carved out responsibilities that were ours.
Design.
Design, yeah, exactly, and they remained ours. So, and they were the things that we customarily do. And you know, they handled the zoning and those kinds of things with some, you know, referrals to us, but
Was that codified in any way?
It was. It was codified as and Sabrina's gonna have a much better memory on this stuff than I am, but it was codified as a process that yielded with the planning board a preliminary concept design plan. And it was
It was the
essentially-
preliminary development concept plan.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And it was essentially a master plan that was developed in consultation between the developer and the planning board. And not only for the retail portion, but also for the neighborhood.
Right, so
And we did that, and the town board waited for that. And then the developer and the planning board went to the town board and said, this is it.
Now, was the decision to do that codified somewhere?
It was codified in, was
In
it codified in
zoning or-
zoning? I don't know. if
That's my
it's-
question, if so, can that?
Yes, it's in the zoning code.
It was it?
It should still be in the zoning code if it was, right? And-
It is, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, if that language already exists, maybe it's analogous here or can be tweaked to,
I think it's a good suggestion.
no?
We talked about it with the town board, I don't think
talked
there was
about
much
it.
traction.
A long time. It was a huge project. The project took up a lot of land, much more than this
Right.
project, but it took a long time to get to the end.
Yeah, but
Of
that
the
was a big, it
legislation.
was a big master plan. I mean, this is just
Yeah.
one building.
Right,
It needn't take that long.
I know,
Right.
but
Right. The response, I think, in the meeting we did discuss it was that, well, we needed that process because this was a big master plan. And I don't know, we didn't get much deeper into, well, what does that mean, right? But that was the response, and maybe they're thinking, well, this is a building, we don't need to have that. But my position is, it's a big building, it's gonna be the biggest building in town, certainly the biggest building downtown. And it's going to have such an enormous impact on the street that maybe we need to reactivate some version of that.
So I certainly wouldn't disagree or argue against that. It sounds like another point in this memo to the town board or whatever the format is that there should be further discussions around delineating authority over review and ideally codifying it in a way that addresses everyone's concerns. And maybe there's a way to take some of the language and tweak it or not.
Mhm.
That is already, sounds like is in our zoning code for a different site that was significant, obviously much more land and buildings and is much bigger design, but you know, that was somewhere else and this is in our
Well-
downtown and it's significant.
Yeah, and you know, some of the features of one simple thing was that we wanted it to not be just a continuation of Levitt kind of houses.
Yep.
And so we talked with the, you know, the developer and everything else, and they came to a conclusion that, you know, the buildings would be organized relative to maybe what it is. There's a gymnasium, so it looks like a gymnasium. But there's a string of buildings which are slowly getting filled with people.
Yep.
You know, and well, you take a look at it, the heights and the colors and the shape and everything. It really was almost historic in some of its construction, you know, layout.
Yeah, you guys built a Main Street.
Yeah, what was it, yeah.
And it's really nifty, and the same is for the housing. I'm not sure they're really playing the game right, but that should be looked into maybe, but the housing had different fascia.
Yep.
And you know, which instead of, if you go to Pleasantville, and you ride through, you can see about 70 buildings, all the same.
Yeah.
Same color, same height, same everything. And fortunately, it's looking over everybody in a way, and they've tried to get vegetation that will grow and hide it, but it's sort of like your King Street thing.
Yep, yeah. I've actually toured both of those sites and so I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yep.
And you know, relatively recently, and so agreed. I mean, I think we're on the same page here.
I think so. Tom, do you wanna speak to your memo that you prepared with Sabrina? I mean, you did take the time to go out and to give us some information here. Does anyone have questions for Tom on what was prepared? I mean,
If the audio is giving us trouble, you could call my cell phone and then I'll play it, the speaker through the microphone. There's nothing else I can do right
Yeah,
now
I know.
until the audio engineers come.
it almost seems like it's here because
It's only cause everything else, the recording, it's all fine.
but even when Dennis was speaking, it started to get garbled when you were speaking on the last application that you spoke on. So it's almost like
Hi
internal.
Tom, we
I was
gotcha.
wondering if he was too close to the microphone.
No, he's far
Let
away.
me get you a microphone. Okay.
Can you hear me well?
We can hear you.
Barely.
Barely, okay, I'll try to speak louder.
Okay.
Good.
Good evening all members of the board. For me directly.
Ah. Wait a minute.
1 second.
How about that
What?
microphone?
This mic is usually better. Okay, Tom, go again.
Do you have questions that you would like to ask?
We're not hearing that through the PA, I'm just hearing the phone.
Oh, I don't know what else to do then.
Yeah.
Try that.
Alright, Tom, talk again.
I was asking if the board had specific questions.
It's a problem with the PA overall.
Yeah.
But he's asking if we have specific
Any
questions
questions
about
on
the
his
memo.
memo or otherwise?
Which memo? Oh, this one?
Yeah. The one they put together on the
I
height.
think it's helpful, it
Yeah, that sounds okay now.
backdrop.
Comes in and out, it's crazy.
Did you kick it? Just- Ah.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Just bring the phone closer to us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Whatever's
I'll
best.
hold it.
Okay. Sorry.
When Sabrina and I set out to do the analysis, we went to the town code for the definition of building height. So the gutter line, if you will, and the top ridge line of a building, we take the average height between those. So that's where these analyses came from. The previous product, Conifer and 91 Bedford, have heights listed in their plan sets that we could evaluate and list on this analysis. Other buildings in town, one South Greeley, were estimations of average heights because they were not listed in the plan set. I can try to go up to 149 King and evaluate an average median height of those condo units in a few locations for you.
That would be helpful. I would appreciate that very much.
Yeah, I will work on that as soon as possible.
Great, thank you, Tom.
Tom, from my perspective, I've sort of been focused on the necessity, I believe, the necessity to get a model built. I haven't gone back and thought and looked at the existing buildings that we may, additional ones we may wanna look at. So what I'd like to do is to get back to you on that. I think there's probably time to either expand the list or modify the list. But this is extremely helpful, thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Just ask and I will do the best I can.
Thank you, Tom.
Tom, would those condominiums have been built under code so that they were, the peak would have been at, I mean, at the ground level up there, at 35 feet max? They're fairly
That is
recent.
correct.
Okay,
What you're visualizing from the North Greeley is probably the tallest side. They go from the average grade to the average roof height. So it is, in theory, the back section will look a lot taller than the front of the building.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting that they are
yeah, no,
not up to
compliant,
code.
they're compliant,
Yeah,
of
yeah.
course.
I just, relative to North Greeley and where they're built. But that's interesting.
I think Bob was maybe suggesting that you don't have to measure them if you know they're built to code, you already know how high they are.
Right.
And the missing piece of
Is
information
the elevation, the
topography,
grade change.
Exactly.
Sure.
Exactly.
which is topography, which
We should have.
right.
When were they built? Do we know?
3 years ago?
No.
Oh, which ones are we talking about?
No,
149.
149 King.
25 years ago?
Right.
Chuck,
What I can try to establish.
architectural historian?
Yeah, wish I had that answer, I don't. Sorry.
Hold on, sorry, but Tom was there an
What I
answer?
can try to assess for you is the tallest height you're seeing in the back. The building mass is what's catching your eye.
Yep.
Yeah,
Absolutely,
yeah,
correct.
that's right.
Okay, great. It's just another data point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Terrific. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Sabrina.
Whose phone is this?
Very welcome.
I think that's Carrie's.
It's
Thank
yours
you.
now, Tom.
Yeah.
It's a real team effort tonight.
Sign
Phones,
language.
equipment, great stuff. Okay.
I think Jen is trying to get our attention.
Hi, Jennifer.
Oh, you need a phone.
She's probably calling.
Carrie, can I call your phone? Can you hear me?
All right, we can hear you. It's not too bad.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe I'll try this. If it gets bad,
We can turn it
speak
down.
up and let me know.
The volume will be okay.
I just want to interject. I learned this afternoon that I understand the town board is considering introducing the legislation next week, going with staff's recommendation of the 50 feet. I think a lot of the discussion that you've been having tonight with respect to the model and
To go 50
Jennifer,
feet.
What'd you say about 50 feet?
that would be the height that is proposed in the legislation, that I believe is being introduced next week by the town board. I think a lot of the discussion that you've been having is gonna be really helpful for reviewing whether that 50-foot height is appropriate or is not. And that'll come for the secret review of the local law. But my understanding is that the town board is moving forward sooner rather than later with the legislation. So I just wanted to make that known. That's my understanding. I know I heard some discussion about suggesting that the town kind of hit pause, the town board hit pause, and do some further analysis before moving forward with the legislation. If you feel strongly about that, I would get a memo to the town board this week on that issue.
Okay.
Hope you heard all that.
Yes, we did. Yes, you did.
Okay, a question. When you say 50 feet, is that to the peak of the roof or is it the midway?
That's all laid out in Tom's memo. So it's 50 feet as measured under our code.
Which is be the maximum ridge height or the median height?
The median height.
The median height is what they're looking at. Then right now, the proposal is for 52.5 feet.
50 feet.
No, the proposal for, as I understand it, the median roof height in the applicant's proposal is 52.5 feet?
No, 48.7.
No, the median.
No, it's 48.7.
48.7?
At least according to this memo.
That is correct.
So they're gonna give it an extra foot or two.
Oh, it is, okay, I'm sorry.
So, but so the legislation will be higher than that? Which is fine, I'm just curious why that's the case.
Well, I don't know if it's fine, but what I don't
No,
know.
no, fine, I just mean as far as fine only in the sense of it not matching exactly what the proposal is, so.
Oh, no, that's okay, yeah.
Conceptually.
They're giving a little bit more room because it's a zoning code, to make it 48 feet, 48.7 feet would be silly.
Well, that's all I meant by fine.
I got it. So, obviously, what maybe, I think distresses me is that they asked us to look at this. I thought that they were going to wait for us to help them come up with a number, they just picked a number. And if the strategy is the process they're suggesting is that the planning board can come back in the secret process and say, well, wait a minute, we think that's too high. Once you're in the secret process, right? Unless I'm mistaken, the applicant has certain prerogatives within the secret process. And in order for to challenge the 50-foot height, there would have to be, unless I'm mistaken, there would have to be much more stringent demonstration of why that's inappropriate than would apply right now in a conversation before that number goes in.
That we're dealing with legislation here, so literally at any point in this process, whether it's today, whether it's tomorrow, whether it's 2 months from now, 6 months from now, or 6 months ago, the town board could pull the plug on this whole process.
But that's not what
The
I'm asking.
town board has ultimate discretion, so, and it's legislation, it's not there's no application before the town currently for development of the site.
No, I understand that, but okay, so but you just said that if it turned out that for whatever reason, planning board, architecture review board, town board decided that 50 feet in the end was not going to be was wrong, it would be in the secret process of the review of the draft legislation where that could be addressed?
It could be in the secret process, it could be the town board just unilaterally saying, you know what, we don't like 50 feet, we think it should be 40 feet. That they have a lot of discretion.
No, I know that, but they don't have, do they have discretion, let me ask you this, do they have discretion after the legislation has been passed? Is there provision in the code to say, well, we've decided something different, we want it to be 45 feet or it can be 60 feet, can they just say that?
Based on, so once it's an adopted local law, then they have to abide by that local law. The way it's drafted currently, it's a maximum of whatever, I guess, they're gonna insert 50 feet. And it gives the town board, it explicitly says that the town board has the authority to downwardly modify that. So it's not like the applicant would have, quote unquote, as of right, up to 50 feet. They have to demonstrate that it's not gonna create impacts to go up to 50 feet.
Okay, now I'm confused because I thought you just said once the legislation's in place, the town board doesn't have the authority to do that. It's an as of right provision in the code.
Well, it's being.
That's not what I just said, no.
Okay, I misunderstood that.
So does, this is, the only question I have on this process is, in order to adopt a zoning law change, which the town board obviously has got the power to do, is a seeker finding required first before a zoning law is adopted?
They have to go through SECRA. It doesn't have to be a finding statement. It depends on whether they determine it's a negative declaration or positive declaration, but they have to go through the SECRA process.
But do they do that before they adopt the law?
Yes, yes.
So when is that happening?
Yeah, is that underway?
Yeah. the petitioner, the property owner, has submitted a whole trove of information related to seeker, and that's all posted on the website. That's not to say that that's the only information that the town board is gonna review. I'm sure they'll be requesting more.
But has that environmental review begun?
Yeah, you received, we discussed several months ago, the town board circulated, I believe it's notice of intent to be the agency, obviously, because they're the only involved agency for the legislation. So in that regard, the process has started, yes, the town board is the lead agency.
Well, we knew that, I was unaware of, I just don't know, again.
Whether preparing the documentation to come to a
Exactly.
conclusion is underway.
Exactly. So apparently it's underway, and that was one of the questions I've been asking for a while, and that was, I thought the best way to pursue this would that you would orchestrate seeker, site review, and legislation together. It seems like it's start, finish, start, stop, different, it's not as orchestrated as I would normally expect on something like this, and that's not our call, but
I agree, I couldn't agree more.
it just
And
seems.
from the start, the first time I got involved in this, I recommended that the application for the underlying development be submitted at the same time as the request for the legislation, so they can proceed simultaneously, because it's a lot less confusing and a lot.
Yeah, to a certain extent, it conjures up the old, story about your accountant who says, well, what do you want it to add up to? And I'm not quite sure that's the way the process should be going.
Yeah, I think that my version of history here, which I think is the accurate one, is that we have been for quite a while saying, wait a minute, we need to really understand what the design proposal is before you institute, before you do the zoning legislation. Nothing is going to happen on the property until somebody actually signs a document that is given to Tom DePaul which authorizes construction. Nothing's gonna happen there. And I don't understand, that is gonna be one day in the future, it's either gonna be this applicant or another applicant, but one day it's gonna happen. What is the reason to rush through this part of the process when you could just as easily put that on hold and not affect where the date where Tom picks up a document that authorizes construction and end up with something which is a more coherent representation, an accurate representation, I believe, of what we represent the people of the town as well. I mean, maybe that's something that people don't understand, but I believe it. I mean, we're here as an independent board to do that. And my frustration is that we've been talking about, gee, you guys, maybe you ought to be doing it a different way, and they're not listening to us. They have decided that they're gonna go ahead and do it the way they wanna do it. And if we're getting assurances from them that, well, we're gonna work with you, we're gonna work with you, we're gonna work with you, I actually, in their response to our memo, our problems with the zoning legislation, the January 25th memo or 23rd memo, whatever it was a response which essentially ignored it. It actually took away some of the authority that they were going to give us. Their next version was to take away a required joint meeting between the town board and the planning board. Is then gonna be something that would be at their discretion. So I guess I'm calling them to task to demonstrate that we actually have a role here. And I think we need to know that. Well, I mean, it would be great if we get a declaration of that somehow so that we would know how to proceed. And if they decide that, well, we don't have a role here, I actually think that there are provisions within the town code and the state codes which say that we actually do have a role here. We have an authority to do certain things. I don't wanna have to go there. I would like to go to work with everybody, and my opinion on this may not be shared with the rest of the board. But this is the most important project, other than Chapel Crossing perhaps. But this is a very important project for the future of the hamlet.
Yeah.
And it just occurs to me that I would love to be, called on the carpet as being told wrong about this. I hope that happens. but I don't know what other conclusion to come to.
Well, I don't either, but you know, right now, I would say, why are you giving 50 feet when the project that is in front of us is at 48.7? Why would you add something so another building could come in that's even taller, even if it's only 2.5 feet? This is not. We're being listened to as much as we're being paid to.
We're being. Yeah, so, yeah, you get which paper. So why is it at 45 feet? I mean, if they're gonna go one way or the other, why not
Because
45? You know why?
48.7 is for the project in here, and they're gonna go for 50, maybe.
Right.
But, you know, as a maximum, that's what it should be, and we would recommend that it should be lower.
I don't know I don't know why we're sitting here tonight. I mean, it's-
Yeah.
So I think, I mean, just to advance the conversation, especially because it's getting late.
Yes, it is.
I think another, you know, Jennifer, this is helpful, right? I mean, it's not necessarily great news, but it is information that you know, the you know, on some level, the train has left the station, right? And you know, if they're advancing the zoning legislation next week, doesn't mean it gets voted on next week. There's gonna be some public hearings, I'm sure, but it is moving in that towards that direction. And so I think another note or bullet point in our memo to them is again, like, maybe you need to have a substantive discussion about process. Again, I don't know.
Yeah, I think, look, just because they're advancing it to schedule a public hearing to hear from the public doesn't mean that it's, you know, the ship has sailed. You know, it's just another step in the process. There, like we have just been discussing, there's still SECRA to go through. And I think all of the things that you've been talking about tonight are really helpful for the town board to hear as methods to study and determine, is 50 the right number? That still has to be determined. You know, 50 might not be the right number. It's the number that's being put out there to be studied and to be analyzed to figure out, is that where we should land, or should it be higher, should it be lower? The public process will help inform that, and further comments from this board will help the town board to figure that out.
So for the public to understand and the public to comment on, I think it'd be helpful if it was an informed public that was doing that. And the way to, I think, inform the public is to begin to talk about what the zoning is actually putting in place in terms of building. And that means site plan review, that means looking at the architecture, that means looking at the project as a whole, so the public knows what the zoning is for, what its intended consequence is.
I think it also means a model, so we have a sense of what is 50, what is 45, do they, you know.
It's actually a mini charrette, if you will, right? It's a one location charrette, I mean, with impacts to this street. So call it what you will, but that's one of the things that, you know, we heard that the town board was interested in doing town-wide, so let's look at it here.
I'm sorry, I know it's late, but you know, I'm shocked to hear that they're moving forward with this. The public does not know. I mean, I've been talking to people, they don't understand this project.
Well, not only does the public not know, we've heard.
I understand, but the images.
I guess we're part of the public,
We just
but-
found out last week what it's all
The images online are deliberately squat, they don't do justice.
of course.
Yes, of course, and I appreciate everything you're doing, and please stand your ground, because this is a community changing project. And I just wanna point out that the Hakeem property to the north is 900 feet long. And the town has, that property owner's retained an architect and has designed a big building, which might have 100 residences in it. I've heard from 2 sources, an architect's been involved and a building's been designed. Now it's on hold, it's not in the legislation now, but the town asked to put it in the legislation, not the applicant. The town did, so the ground has been set for that property to follow. And so there'll be 1,300 feet of 50-foot tall building fronting on North Greeley Avenue? That's insane to me. And those poor people who live there, who have their homes, their investments there, and the ambulance crews there, it's gonna be a mess. The so-called seeker information is a 13-page document that the applicant put in November. I just looked at the website, that's the only thing there. A lot of it is regurgitated language from the form-based code stuff. There's nothing exciting in there. And in fact, it relies on a traffic study that the town board expressly abandoned in August, the Kimley-Horn traffic study, as their traffic study. And yes, Kimley-Horn generated data from the traffic study, but they made the study, they decided what day to do it, what hour to do it, where to do it, so they structured the analysis. The analysis from Kimley-Horn was abandoned in August by the town board, but they're relying on that for their traffic study. So it's not a worthwhile secret document of any sort. If that's what they put in, that's the only thing I see, it's a joke. All right, so this is really serious business. I don't like that the hearing's opening up because then it just gets momentum. There's no studies of anything, not of height. They're asking for, they're going to 1,450 square feet on 2-bedroom apartments. Chuck's limited to 1,000 square feet on his apartments. So they're getting another concession. So lower parking, greater density, higher building, and bigger apartments. They have 42 apartments that are bigger than the maximum height, right, maximum square footage permitted right now in that district. And those 50 parking spaces in the business parking district, those are supposed to be used for everybody, just like it was explained. If somebody wants to build an apartment above a building, and they're in the business retail district, they're supposed to be able to use parking elsewhere, but those 50 spaces are for communal use. Now it's gonna be all taken for this one building. There's concession after concession after concession after concession. For what? For a 50-foot tall monstrosity that's gonna change our town forever? I think a reasonable project that's believable, that's sustainable, that's community supported, that can be replicated elsewhere is the way to go. This is not it. So, this is an astounding thing that they're gonna open the public hearing on Tuesday, I guess. And they're ignoring you, they're ignoring residents. I don't know who they are, but somebody's ignoring you and residents, okay? I don't know, but it's not good news. And I appreciate everything you've said tonight. The model's great. Every resident who hears about this is blown away. They can't believe it, but people don't understand it. They don't even know it's happening. So a model that can be in town hall and people can come see it or something is the way to go. There should not be a rush for this. So
Well, there's a rush because otherwise people might form a blockade of some sort. So this is how you do it, you ram it through.
I agree with you. But it shouldn't be that way, and you do represent the town.
Yeah, I don't,
That's my opinion, I agree with them.
No, that's, thank you for, speaking up, but I'm not sure that I would agree necessarily with you, Dick, about that. I don't wanna impugn anything here. No, honestly, I don't. They have reasons for why they're doing it this way. Nobody yet has told me why. Nobody yet has given me a rational explanation
agree
why
with you.
this is the right way to do it as opposed to this other way to do it or that other way to do it. And so there's a tremendous, for me personally, there's a tremendous frustration. I actually believe that, maybe I'm just naive, but I actually believe that we represent the people of this town, this board
Yes,
does,
thank
on
you. Thank you.
planning matters, and development matters, that's what we're here for. This is not Tom Curley sitting up here saying, gee, I want to do this because I want to do this. If I wasn't on this board, I wouldn't be on this side of town. I live on the other side of town, right? I actually, would say, okay, well, Chappaqua, do what you're gonna do. But I don't have that luxury, right? I'm here to do what I think I'm being asked to do.
Thank you.
And so for me, it's not personal, it's none of that. It's just, let's solve the problem together. And these are the kinds of problems we're supposed to be solving. I'm sorry to go on and on about this.
My name is Margaret Ferguson, so sorry, I thought I did say it. Anyway, I agree with you too. It's a very frustrating situation and it's largely inexplicable to me what's
Yeah.
going on.
It's a game changer, it's gonna change the whole flavor of the town, it sounds like it's like Pleasantville, with their tall buildings which are not attractive.
And by the way, that building by the post office, which is 50 feet or 52, I'm not sure which, it has a front on the street of about 170 feet according to Google Maps, and it goes back about 250 feet. So when you take Rite Aid, the angle, it doesn't go 170 feet back, but it's 470 feet along North Greeley. It's gonna have a presence that is even bigger than that building by the post office.
That's why I think we need a model. So
Thank you for letting me speak, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
So I really don't want to end up in I wanna be advocates, I don't wanna be antagonists. I really want to find a way to work within the process.
100%.
And so, I mean, I think we're all getting a little strident about this, and I think that's probably for, legitimate reasons, but I think we need to find a way to, join hands with the town board and let them know we're working in good faith and we just, we wanna find a way to do that.
Yeah, I agree. But at the same time, it's also time, I think, that we start to see something reciprocate back to us other than that we're looking forward to working with you and then not get the information or find out other things are going, at a different speed, different way, different direction. So communication is critical and it hasn't been that great.
So how do we communicate with them on all this?
Well, I think obviously we have to draft something very quickly, I think. Should go out again as Jennifer suggested this week. And so I think we should address the points that we've talked about at some length. I guess the bottom line on the one assignment to us on height, we're not prepared to agree that 50 feet is the right number.
We don't know.
We're not prepared to say any number at this point is the right number. We haven't done enough study. And we think that should be deferred for some time anyway. Until we have the information, talk about the model. I really think we should send a memo that includes these kinds of points. It's not that we're stepping on their toes, it's just these are the kinds of things that need to be talked about and considered. The bottom line is this application as it is currently proposed ought not to be approved as is, from our perspective. I mean, I think almost everyone on the board agrees with that.
Yep.
That's not a obstructionist statement, it's just one that it can be improved, it can be bettered for everyone's position, and I think that's what we try to do all the time. So I think that's what the memo would have to articulate.
Let's do it.
And we'll get it going. So is there a resolution to get such a memo out? I'm not sure. I'll try to take a crack at it.
As long as it has your name on it, I'm okay with it.
I'm with it.
Can't lose any more money.
Alright.
Yes.
So if there's a resolution, a motion to do that,
So moved.
and I'll get it out to everyone.
Second.
I'll get it out to everyone because it's not a personal treatise. Again, as I did on this, I wanted the feedback and make sure it's the right tone and et cetera. So we still have minutes to do.
That should take a second.
Exactly.
How many minutes do we have to do the
We
minutes?
can do this in a minute. 'Cause I did not have any single changes at all.
I didn't have either.
Me either, I think they're
I
great.
wasn't present, so I'm not gonna be voting.
We're done.
Okay.
Okay,
All
and
right, so we three can vote. Is there a
Yes.
motion to adopt the minutes of
So
February
moved.
21?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And is there a motion then to close the meeting?
yes.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jennifer. Bye.
I didn't want to bring it up as I was looking through the